Good evening. The time is 5:06, and the Warwick Finance Committee is now in session. Item number one, correction. May I have a motion for acceptance of the minutes for the committee meeting held on April 22nd, 2024?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. PCR 43-24. May I have an acceptance of the minutes for the committee for the meeting held April 22nd, 2024?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure.
Item number one from PCR 43-24 is bid 2025-015, Rescue Service Billing Administrator. Good evening.
Good evening. Lynn Prodger, City Treasurer.
Thank you.
This evening, I'm requesting that the council award the Rescue Billing Administrator contract to Comstar, who is the lowest bidder at 2.75%. My ask is $360,000 for 3 years.
Thank you. And Lynn, this is a revenue generating bid?
Correct.
Are there any questions from members of the committee?
No, thank you.
Clarification? Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would indulge me for a moment, I would like to request the chief of staff come to the podium, please.
Could you repeat that question? I'm so sorry.
I said, if you would indulge me for a moment, I would request that the chief of staff come to the podium.
Thank you. Yes, Chief, Councilman Lattisaur requested you please identify.
Sure. Aaron Mackesy, Mayor's Chief of Staff.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief. So, Chief, you'll remember at the last council meeting, I had made a statement that you had not forwarded me documents, or I should say you had not answered my questions regarding the speed signs. You remember that?
We'd had it back and forth, yes.
And I am a believer that when I call someone out in public and it's an error, then I need to apologize in public. The following day, Joanne Canoyer sent me the 2 emails that were sent to me earlier, and apparently I had missed, not seen, whatever. But at the end of the day, I owe you a public apology, and that's what I'm doing tonight.
Thank you, Councilman. That's very kind of you. Certainly no ill will taken here.
That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Chief. Lynn, thank you. Is there any questions on the bid 2025-015 from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? No question. Oh, Councilman Lattisaur.
Sorry. The one question I have is, do you have a total of the revenue that the city received last year?
I do.
Perfect.
It is $3,854,000.
I'm sorry, 3 million what?
$3.8 million. And we're projected in 24 to $4.1 million.
And if I recall correctly, that's a significant yearly increase over the last several years, right?
Correct.
And Mr. Chairman, you will recall it was yourself and the council president and myself on the finance committee when we had significantly increased the fees that were being charged for the rescue service back in the day. Kind of came to us by an accident with, someone raising a ruckus that they were charged a resident. And the result of that was we put forward the recommendation to increase those fees, and here we are. So kudos.
Thank you, and I have to agree with you, Councilman.
Mr. Chair, could you repeat that, please?
I
Again?
will absolutely agree with you on that. That was something that we discussed, but also I'd like to add that, if you don't mind, it's also the planning and the advocacy of the Warwick Fire leadership, this council, the council president, and the members of this council and the administration working together to get actually functioning and operational rescues on the road that assisted in getting the services to our citizens, as well as guaranteed that we do not have to spend earned revenue to other municipalities to borrow their equipment. So well done. This is the fruits of that. So any further questions from members of the public? Thank you. The next item is bid 2025-011, collection services and rescue fees. Good evening. Just please identify.
Good evening, Kyla Jones, City Tax Collector. Tonight I present to you our collection services bid number 2025-11.
Could you please just speak up? Thank you.
Our recommendation would be for us to award this bill to Rossi Law Office as the lowest qualified bidder. Rossi has worked with the city of Warwick for many years and do currently hold numerous other cities and towns contract. The funds would come out of both the tax collector's budget 22,360 and for rescue services 302,408. Rossi has previously worked with Comstar, who is the current bid holder and also the recommended bid holder for next year.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of this committee on bid 2025-011? Are there any questions, comments from members of the council on this bid 2025-011? Are there any questions, comments from members of the public? One at a time? No? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to be on to bid 2024-352. That's DPW Connecticut Point Park Shade Structure Project. Christy, if you would please identify, but also I'll then briefly, if it's okay with this committee, give Councilman McElroy an opportunity to make a statement on this. Thank you.
Good evening, Christy Moretti, Public Works. We went out to bid for the shade structure for Connecticut Point. We received 4 bids and are recommending award to ProBuilt Designs LLC in the amount of $136,000, and these are ARPA funds.
Okay, thank you. Before I call on Councilman McElroy, who is setting up some technicality, I'd like to call on the council president.
I don't want to steal Councilman McElroy's thunder, but yeah, I just, this is one of the ARPA projects, neighborhood projects. I know Councilman McElroy has been working with the residents of Connecticut on this, and this was a big project. It's by the water, so a whole lot of factors had to take place, and I know that DPW and Joanne and Councilman McElroy spent a lot of time on this bid, and I know that the residents of the Connecticut Village Association are excited about it, and I just wanted to offer my support for it as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilman McElroy, this is on bid 2024-352, Connecticut Point Park Shade Structure Project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is a structure that the Connecticut Village Association was trying to get for years, and we were able to do it this year with ARPA money, and I think it'll be something not only for the ward but also for the city. It's something that the Parks and Recreation Director, Bev Wiley, supports wholeheartedly, and I agree that it is a good thing to move forward. I urge your support.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Are there any questions for members of this committee? Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the council? Are there any questions from members of the public? Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next bid for discussion is bid 2022-285, the Warwick Police Department renovation. This is found on page 8. Good evening, Major. Please identify.
Good evening, Major Andy Sullivan for the Police Department. The Police Department is requesting a 612 alteration to contract for bid 2022-285 in order to increase spending authority. We are seeking to increase the spending authority by $115,000, which will bring the new total up to $175,000. The Police Department has previously contracted with Kessel Booz Associates for the police station renovation analysis. This analysis led to a cost-prohibitive figure and no renovation was completed. If approved, we will continue to utilize Kessel Booz for design services and construction contract administration for our alternative project of constructing a 100 by 75-foot steel structure on the existing police department land. We feel Kessel Booz is best qualified to continue with us on this alternative project, as they are very familiar with our building, land, and our objectives. If approved, the additional $115,000 in spending authority would be allocated from pre-approved ARPA funds, budget code 5100400.
Thank you, Major. Are there any questions from members of this committee? Are there any questions from members of the council? Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Major.
Good evening.
Major, I know that originally the police department had put in for use some ARPA funds to do a big renovation of that much needed renovations at headquarters, and all the work that needed to be done to get it done correctly was millions of dollars more than we had at this time. So I know you guys are kind of regrouping and trying different things here and fixing parts where you can, and that's part of this, correct? It's kind of like the second plan now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's correct.
so while we had a good amount of ARPA funds, there was never, there's never enough, right? So unfortunately, you have to piecemeal. I know the police department, they do a lot with that building there, and it's very old, and I think this is something we should definitely support. They would like to have and deserve better, but I'm gonna support what we can give you at this time, and I think this is part of that project here. So thank you, Major.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Major.
Good afternoon.
Major, what is this 7,500 square foot building going to be used for?
It'll be used for, so as we know from prior meetings, we approved the purchase of a mobile command center, a armored vehicle, a Bearcat. So our plan is to store those new assets in there once those are delivered many months from now, I'm sure. And also we'll house all other assets such as our motorcycles, our traffic trailers, and various other things that we can store there, preserve them, keep them out of a lot of these things are out in the weather right now, so it can certainly extend their lives if we can put them in a climate controlled environment away from the weather. Also our BCI van, which is aging, that's another thing that would go in there. It wouldn't be any offices or anything like that, just primarily vehicles and equipment.
And I'm sure it's safe to say that there'll be no storage of firearms in that building or ammo. Or
Absolutely
anything
not,
like
no.
that. Where did the price come from of $115,000 to do this building?
That's not the price for the building. That's the Kessel Booz, who's a architectural firm. That's for them to do all the renditions, basically work with us and build it to specifications of what we are looking for, and toggle up or toggle down based on where their estimates of what that would cost would fall. So if what we propose of what we're looking for is too much, they'll advise us and guide us on to that aspect and reduce the rendering to a more affordable within our budget. And then they will also interpret all the contracts and basically essentially handle all the bidding process or produce all the bid material for us and go
So
over all that with us.
The 60,000 that we already approved, that did not factor into any of these additional things that they need to do to, what is, get you out for bid for the
No, the
building?
115,000 is I don't know if you have it in your packet, that's a schedule of services that they're going to provide throughout this project.
Right. No, I'm talking about the 60,000 that was spoken to in the beginning.
Yes, that was put towards the original building renovation analysis that they conducted.
Okay.
So that was all the renderings of the renovation that would have been or could have been, but due to prohibitive costs, we couldn't do.
And I assume that the department received the work product for the 60,000 that I assume has been spent up to this point?
There's some remaining. I don't have the exact figure, but I know we did not utilize all the 60,000. So I think we can, that's still available and we can use that for incidentals if there's any unexpected testing or site pre-work that needs to be done that might be outside the scope of this 115,000.
I also noticed on this KBA report, who from the department was working with KBA?
Primarily from our department is Deputy Chief Lima.
Deputy Chief who?
Michael Lima.
Okay. It also says prepare a design development cost estimate. So that's what you were just referring to earlier, right? That's going to be part of that 115,000.
Yes, so they'll come up with the basically the architectural rendering of it, the well, you know, the mechanicals, what that's gonna project it to cost, or what we could expect to see from a bid.
Further on, it says it does not include possible supplemental services such as land surveying or any scope beyond the project limit of work areas. Is there going to be any required surveying or additional scope of work?
I believe our people have already consulted with DPW Director Earls, and we will utilize the city's site surveyor. And
Okay.
Sewer has allowed us to use Matt Salitro to oversee a lot of this project.
Use Matt Salitro for what?
To oversee a lot of this project once it
Okay.
gets going.
I think that's all that I have. Thank you. Thank you, Major. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions, comments from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Major. So the next item will be bid 2024-455. And it'll go, right after that, we will go into 2024-065. And so the committee understands and the people in attendance understand, one, they do go hand in hand, but we will still treat them as two separate bids. But there will be discussion upon bid 2024-065 to explain what led up to bid 2024-455. So just to get that out there on the record. Christy, good evening, and please identify and you may begin.
Christy Moretti, Public Works. Public Works is requesting to purchase one, excuse me, Chevy Silverado 2500 HD with a plow package from Liberty Chevrolet for $60,402. This vehicle is going to be purchased with ARPA funds.
Thank you. And there was further information provided Thursday to clarify any amount of the overage from the previous bid, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments from members of this committee? Are there any questions, comments from members of this council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Hi, Christie.
Good evening.
So I have a lot of concerns with this bid. Initially, the city issued a purchase order for this vehicle on July 11th, I believe it was, of 2023, in the amount of $55,824. The documents that I'm looking at here, which includes the state of Rhode Island contract or vendors that are on their list, doesn't include the National Fleet Group on their list of vendors. It's also confusing that in your position paper, you allude to purchasing a new vehicle from 72 Hour LLC. Who is LLC? 72 Hour LLC. Who is that?
So you're actually referring to the second piece of this request.
There,
So
what, please? I'm sorry, I can't hear
You're
you.
referring to the second piece of this request. You're referring to the next bid that is,
Are you doing 455 first, Chairman, or are you doing the other one first, 65?
We're going in order, so we're doing 2024 455. But if there is discussion on 2024 065, it's because one goes hand in hand. However, it's for the department to explain why they're rescinding this to purchase this vehicle, so it's clear and understood that they're not getting the two vehicles. They're rescinding one to purchase another. So just for the record, I wanted to clarify to people listening or watching and to members in this council, if we do discuss it, that is why.
But you are discussing right now.
2024 455, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's the one I'm talking about.
Thank you.
So who is that? Because on the purchase order that is issued to 72 Hour LLC on July 11th isn't what is spoken to elsewhere with this National Auto Fleet Group.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, if I can just step in
Yes.
here. He's still referring to the wrong bid. The bid that we're discussing right now is 2024 455, which is Liberty Chevrolet, which is on the state MPA. The one
Yes.
that the councilman keeps referring to is 2024 065, which is the one we're rescinding.
Oh, really? Okay.
But, I'll just clarify. So, Councilman, if you look at page 21, is that what you have?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. On page 21, that is where the bid for this begins. It is riding on,
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, the state of Rhode Island bid passenger vehicle, including law enforcement. I think, so does that clarify?
Okay, so I was kind of crossing over both of them. Okay.
No worries.
So what's your preference? Would you prefer to stick with the conversation of why the bid is being rescinded, or would you prefer to have the discussion as to why we're considering Liberty Chevrolet?
I would go with the bid 2024 455, the purchase of the new vehicle. And if the conversation comes up, I want people to understand that is why, because they have to rescind one But because this is an amount above the $50,000 threshold, we put this first. And then it can be the rescind, but if the discussion continues of why it's being rescinded to purchase 2024-455, I just wanted to clarify that. So we're on bid 2024-455, and that would be the one Chevy Silverado 2050, 2500 HC with plow package.
But to have a clear understanding of what happens or what's happening here
Yes, sir.
is both bids need to be discussed.
Right.
So are you okay with discussing both of them simultaneously?
Solicitor, I have no problem discussing both simultaneously because one does go with the other. We were honoring the $50,000 threshold. Is that clear with you? Is that good to go for this committee?
Yeah, you've established that these are related items, so you can proceed with discussion on both, but if there needs to be any action, we would take them one at a time.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good. Thank you, Councilman Christie. Understood. Thank you so much,
So
Councilman.
here again, the bid initially went to National Auto Fleet Group. That's part of your rescind request. But yet, in these documents, it refers to 72-hour LLC. I don't understand why are there two different things here for the same vehicle?
Excuse me, it was DBA. So when we make the request, it's National Auto Fleet Group, but when we issue the purchase order, because they're doing it as a DBA, it's issued to 72-hour Auto LLC.
So, but 72-hour LLC, that wasn't part of, or it wasn't identified in the original bid request, right? Because in the initial bid request, the one that we approved was 2024-065 to National Auto Fleet Group for $55,824. That's why I don't understand why on July 11th, a purchase order was issued to 72-hour LLC.
As I just explained, they are 72-hour Auto is a DBA of National Fleet Auto Group. So the parent company, if you will, is National Fleet Auto, who is awarded, but it's a DBA. I don't know how else to explain that.
Then the purchase order should have been issued to the DBA.
It was issued to the DBA.
Yeah, but there's nothing in here that showed us DBA until we just look at this document right now. So this is not clear. At least it's not clear to me anyways. We go from a National Auto Fleet Group to seeing a document where the purchase order says July 11th, 2023, issued to 72-hour LLC. That's just not clear.
That's
Now-
what's on their W-9. So that's how they're set up.
And this type of thing where a vendor has decided to pull back or rescind their bid for whatever reason, this isn't the first time this type of thing happens to us. And it's happening again. And we just say, okay.
So
Now, hold on, Christy, because this isn't like we just ordered this truck today and they called us tomorrow, or they called us even a month from now or 2 months from now and said, we can't deliver this vehicle. The city issued a purchase order for this vehicle, a 2024, issued the purchase order on July 11th, 2023, which I believe was very timely after the city council approved it. Here we are now, 9 months later. By the way, in July of 2023, 24 vehicles were pretty much available. It wasn't like you were looking for, a 2023 and 2023. They were very available. So here we are 9 months later. They notify, by the way, did anyone from the city reach out to this vendor during these 9 months and say, hey, where's our truck? How are we coming along? What's the
Yes,
story?
several times. I myself reached out to them. As
Okay.
you can see, I wrote on the purchase order, March 18th of
Yeah, I saw
24,
that one.
that I reached, that was the last time I reached out to them, and they were supposed to reach out to me on the 22nd of March. And I got a call approximately a week after that, that they still didn't have a date for us. And then I received the email that's included in your package that says they can either push us out to a 2025 model or we can cancel the order.
So I see a notation on here, 318. I don't see any other follow-up, but here we are 9 months down the road, and they decide to inform the city that, oh, we can't deliver you a 2024, but we can deliver you a 2025. Why is that acceptable? Why is that acceptable to the city? Why isn't someone from the city saying, you know what, you bid a vehicle. We accepted your bid in good faith. We awarded you a purchase order. And here you are 9 months later telling us you can't get a 2024. We'll give you a 2025. Oh, thank you very much. And by the way, the difference between the 2025 now is $4,578 more than what the award was for this other truck. Why are we just sitting back and accepting this type of behavior from a vendor? You did what you were supposed to do. You put it out to bid, came to the council, we approved it, you issued a purchase order in a timely fashion. 9 months later, they decide we can't deliver you the vehicle. So too bad. We'll gladly sell you a 2025. So why don't we hold their feet to the fire and say, fine, you bid the vehicle. We accepted in good faith. We issued you a purchase order in a timely manner. You deliver us a 2025 for the same price as we approved for the 2024. I think we are being taken advantage of by some of these vendors.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I just want to clarify a few things. This was not a bid that the city put out and advertised for this vehicle. This was the Sourcewell that we've used multiple times for different platforms. I reached out to the vendor because they are on the Sourcewell. So because we don't have a mechanism to, in essence, piggyback this government bid, I had to write a 56-6 for it, which is why I just want to clarify that it wasn't a city bid that we went out and we requested a quote from them, did what we had to do, brought it to the council. It was approved. We issued our purchase order. I know that there was a GM strike sometime early last year, so things got a little backed up or whatnot. So I don't think it's fair to say that we're being taken advantage of. I think that the vendor is being upfront and saying, hey, you asked for a 24, we can't get it for you.
So then, excuse me, Councilman, so then you're saying that they then said either you can buy the 25 or we'll just cancel the order.
Correct, which is why what we're talking about right now is a rescind because we're not buying a vehicle from them.
Right. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I think we all are in accordance that I actually, I can understand and agree, as I'm sure the frustration you're feeling. Councilman Lattiser did say that the city, you did everything correct. You came to the council, you got it approved, you sent in the purchase order, and we sat back and waited for something that we could get, that we authorized to purchase. And they came back and said, well, it's a 2025 or it's nothing. And the city still needs the vehicle. So I agree, and I understand what Councilman Lattiser is saying. And I also can understand what he's saying about, well, what can we do as a recourse? So your clarification on that is that there are sometimes, and I'm saying this because I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, okay? There are sometimes we can put in that order, and if they can't meet it, they can come back, and that's where they gave us the I don't want to say the permission, that's not the right word, but they gave us the option and the understanding of you can back out of this bid and there'll be no on us and nor on you.
Correct.
Because we cannot supply you what you bid to, what you authorized us to purchase.
Correct.
or
And I-
what you authorized to get.
And I don't think it's, it's unfortunate that we can't get the vehicle that we ordered
Yep.
originally. But at the same time, I don't think it's unexpected in certain industries for these things to happen. It does happen. So we're taking another avenue. We reached out to a vendor on the state MPA, and yes, it is costing us a little bit more money than the original one we requested. It is $402 more than the estimate we put into the ARPA funds for this vehicle, but we are pretty much right, have nailed it on the head with the cost of this vehicle for the one that we're requesting to award now. So, like I said, it's unfortunate, but that's why I included the email that I received, so the
Yep.
council would know the correspondence at that last point where we had to rescind this award with this vendor.
Thank you. Councilman Lattiser, back to you. Thank you.
So this is not acceptable to me. This vendor provided us with an offer for a vehicle for $55,824 9 months ago, over 9 months ago. Finally, out of the goodness of their heart, they come to us and say, oh, we can't deliver on our promise, but we'd be more than happy to sell you a 2025. In the real world, when those type of things happen, a vendor would come back and say, okay, we did our best, we can't deliver it, but we will provide you with this vehicle, even though it's costing us more, we're going to take the hit. Why should the taxpayers have to always take the hit? That's my point. Why aren't we jumping up and down? We've been without a vehicle for 9 months. We need the vehicle. I'm really tempted. I'd love to vote no on this, to be honest with you, just because this process is just so annoying to me, but I'm not going to, because I know we need that vehicle. But to say that, they said, sorry, we'll let you get out of it. Let us get out of it. We should sue them for breach of contract. This is like crazy stuff, and it goes on much too often. At the end of the day, it's costing the taxpayers $4,578 more for a vehicle. I don't know about this, the 402, it's over. We approved something up to 60. That's fine. So between the 55 and the 60, we don't spend. So the vote was up to 60. Now we're going to be charging the taxpayers $4,578 more without a fight. That's what gets me upset, that this vendor isn't being called to task. I think these are some things that we need to start taking a look at. If this is the way we're going to be treated, then we need to start looking at who we're going to allow to bid and who we're not going to allow to bid. And to say that, well, it's okay because they gave us warning. They didn't give us warning. They didn't give us squat. What they did was they gave us a truck that's going to cost the taxpayers $4,600 more. That is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any members of the council that would like to follow up? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more on the background of all of this. Not that I want to keep this going for too much longer, but it seems that there's a couple of possibilities here. One possibility is that at some point they had the 2024s, and I think that the best scenario for them is that they thought that they'd be getting more 2024s. They never did. Or a couple of other scenarios here. They got more 2024s after after this bid went through, and then they just decided to go and sell them to others at a better price. I mean, I know that there are circumstances out there where the dealerships just aren't getting the vehicles, but that's mostly been in the past. It seems that the last year or so, I've been seeing plenty of cars and trucks on these different dealer parking lots. It's not like it was back in the year 2021 or 2022. So if after this bid went through, they got any more 2024s on their lot, and they just went and sold it to someone else, try to make a buck there because they could sell it to someone for a higher price than with the city, I think that's a pretty big problem, that they'd be taking advantage of us like that and then coming back to us and trying to upsell us on something else. Otherwise, it just seems like it's bad business that, even if that weren't the case, for them to be trying to upsell us on the new model year after making us wait for 9 months. Just about any way I look at this, no matter what the justification is, it just seems like bad business that we shouldn't be rewarding them for. But I'm open to hearing the administration's point of view on this, what more information we have. And of course, I'm cognizant of the city's needs here. And for the reasons that Councilman Lattiser said, I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but this is raising some red flags. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Any comments from other members of the council? Are there any comments, questions from members of the public on this bid 2024-455? Thank you, Chrissy. So next we will discuss, and Chrissy will explain the bid 2024-065. Since we already brought it up, I feel it's important to discuss that. And then after that, I will go into the asking my colleagues in the public to identify bids that they would like to discuss from the bid package. So to keep it sincere, I'd like to continue and include this in our discussion. Bid 2024-065. Oh, Councilman Foley.
It's a point of order. Chrissy, is there any new information that you have not already disclosed about 2024-065?
The only thing that I can add, just to clarify Councilman Rick's comments, is that these trucks are not sitting on a lot. We placed an order with them for a 2024. They then placed the order with GM. GM was not building anymore 2024s with the strike that had going on and things like that. So that's why this vendor came back and said, we can offer you a 25. We can put an order in for that, or we can cancel it.
So other than that, you've covered everything about 2024-065.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions, comments from members of this committee? Questions, comments from members of the council on bid 2024-065 to rescind the purchase of the Chevy Silverado? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just additional comments here. So we just heard that in July, 2024 vehicles obviously were not available. That's what we were just told via the vendor. In their letter to Christie on April 12th, New England National Auto Fleet Group, formerly known as NJPA, currently known as DBA 72 Hour LLC, and maybe that's why they got so many different names. What they say is scheduling for the 2024 model. Now listen to this. Scheduling for the 2024 model is coming to a close, and we are afraid your order will not be picked up as a 2024 model. However, the 2025 models will be available in late May or June for quoting. We placed our order July 11th for a 2024 vehicle. How can they deliver a 2025 vehicle or bid us a 2025 vehicle or anyone else in May or June when they couldn't provide us what we sent a purchase order for July 11th?
Mr.
This
Chairman,
makes zero sense. This year, we can deliver a 2025 vehicle. It will be available in late May or June for quoting. The city issued a purchase order July 11th, 2023 for a 24. But 9 months later, they come and tell us we can't do it. My opinion is the city should be calling to task this National Auto Fleet Group and taking whatever mechanisms they need to recoup the $4,500 and some odd dollars that we now have to pay. We, the taxpayers, now have to pay because they somehow didn't live up to their agreement. But it's okay. 2025 will deliver you a new vehicle as long as it's May or June. That's cool. This is ridiculous.
Thank you. Did you have a comment to
Yes,
make? Thank
I
you.
do. It can be quoted in May or June. It doesn't mean it'll be delivered. So it's a little different with government entities when purchasing a vehicle. We can't just go to a car lot and say, hey, I want those six vehicles right there. Those vehicles are for retail sale. They're not for us to go buy. So I understand the councilman's frustration that we don't have this vehicle, but it's not the same as you or I going to a car lot to buy a car. It doesn't work that way. So we have to get quotes. A lot of times the vehicles have to be built. Particularly in some of them, like if we ask for a 1-ton dump body, so you have the cab and chassis and then it has to go to an upfitter, and you've got to have the parts available to build the truck. And so GM was on strike. This vendor wasn't confident that they placed our order, which they tried to place. They weren't confident that GM would pick it up as a 24 model, which is why they gave us the option to purchase a 25, which they could quote in May or June, but we probably won't see it for 6 to 9 months because it needs to be built, because they're building it to our specification. So I don't know if that helps clear up the misconception of, they just don't deliver us a vehicle. We can't award a vehicle tonight and go get it, if it has to be built. The vehicle from Liberty Chevrolet, I can tell you, is that it was a pool unit that they pulled for us. It does meet the specifications that we're looking for, and I'm not sure where it's coming from, but they're having it brought into their dealership for us. So it's municipal pricing. It's not retail pricing. That's the difference between us being able to go to a car lot, like the one you see off 37. They have 1-ton dump bodies. You can see them, but they're not for us to purchase. So I don't know if that helps clear things up.
I think it does. I think we've also discussed this. We understand the reasons why it's been rescinded. We understand the reasons why we're purchasing a new model. We don't have to. And the way I see it is that there is, and you acknowledged the frustration. There is frustration, but I'd have to say since March of 2020, there's been a number of frustrations that it just seems that whether companies and corporations are adapting to or taking advantage of, but either way, we as a city still have to function, and we as a city still have services, and we as a city still have to keep moving forward. In that mind, one moment, please. Are there any other members of the council that would like to comment on this item? Councilman Lattiser, I think I'm going to call on you. I will call on you. I'm just going to ask. I really don't want to back and forth. You made your statements. She made hers. Her statement on behalf of the department. If you would like to wrap it up, please.
Sure. So what we just heard was exactly what was approved for last year. We can go ahead and approve a 2025 now, and they'll build it, and we'll get it 6 or 7 months later. That's exactly what we did last year, but it didn't happen. So my question is, I'm listening to this defense of a vendor that failed in their commitment to the city that is now costing the taxpayers $4,600 more. My question is, when are we going to defend the taxpayers?
No,
They're the ones paying the bill.
Councilman, I have to stop you there, and it's not a defense. I think what Christie did, and the way I'm taking it, is she explained to the best she could what her job and what she deals with dealing with a vendor. She gave us scenarios. She gave us ideas. The fact of the matter is it just couldn't be fulfilled. The job couldn't be fulfilled, wouldn't be fulfilled. So either way, we're out of a truck and we have to buy another vehicle. So the frustration has been acknowledged. It's there, and we agree. The frustration is there, but moving forward to continue the services of the city. So again, this is something that can continue after this finance committee. I would like to now call on members of the public. if there is any discussion questions on bid 2024-065. Thank you. At this time, I would ask the members of the council, members of this committee, members of the public, if there is any item you would like to pull for discussion from this bid package. We've had a few minutes to review. I'd like to ask the members of this committee, are there any items? Thank you. Are there any items from the bid package that members of the council would like to pull for discussion? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 11, 2024-457, found on page 57. In item 2024-458. Hold on one moment. I know what it is. I just want to check my notes.
And just for clarification, item number 11, which is water Neptune fire hydrant meters, and item number 13, bid 2024-458, MIS purchase and maintenance of 10 security cameras.
Yes. So, yeah, I want to pull that 2024-458.
Thank you. Members of the council, are there any items that members of the public would like to pull from the bid package for discussion? Thank you. We'll go right in order as they were requested. So I will go now to item number 11, which is bid 2024-457, water Neptune fire hydrant meters. This is found on page 57. Good evening again, Christy. You may
Good
identify.
evening, Christy Moretti, Public Works. Water is unavailable this evening, so I'm going to handle this for them.
I apologize. Requested by Councilman Lattiser. Councilman Lattiser, you please your questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Christie, on the position paper we have, it says currently we have 3 construction meters that are all in use. 1 sewer department project, 1 RIAC construction project, and 1 for Chili's Pizza. Do these construction contractors, do they receive a charge for using these items?
Yes, and the meters are to meter the water that goes through that they use on the construction site. Us having these to supply for construction sites gives us the ability to ensure that, it has the proper backflow preventers, that our drinking water in the city of Warwick is not being contaminated, and that the vendor, the contractor, whoever's using it, is paying for their share of water.
Okay. And these meters, they're required on all construction sites. As an example, when the new schools are being built, are these meters going to be required on there as well?
I couldn't speak to that.
But are they typically required on these type of construction sites?
The contractor will ask for a meter. There was another job that came through that they didn't have a meter available, which then made them say, we probably should have a couple of more. There is quite a bit of construction going on in the city. So the specifics like that, I can't speak to, but
Sure.
they did discuss this with me and
And this invoicing for the use of these meters, is that something that's invoiced to them monthly, quarterly, at the end of the project?
that I don't know.
It?
That would be a question for the water department. I don't know if they get invoiced like Warwick residents do and businesses, or I have no idea.
Would financing or purchasing be the one doing the invoicing?
No.
It'd be the water department doing the invoicing?
Yes, it's through the utility billing.
So the water department actually is the one that sends out the invoicing for these meters?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have on that one, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions for members of this committee? Any questions, comments from members of the council? Any questions, comments from members of the public on this bid, 2024-457? Thank you, Christy. Next will be item number 13, bid 2024-458. This is MIS, purchase and maintenance of 10 security cameras at City Hall. Good evening, Director Carlucci. identify, and Councilman Lattiser, you'll have the floor.
Phil Carlucci, IT Director.
Thank you. Hi, Director.
Hello.
In your position paper, it says that locations will be utilized to store images for City Hall. How long will these images be stored, and what is the cost associated with that?
The cost is a fixed cost that we've already expended. We have a fairly large capacity DVR, digital video recorder, that is secured in the computer room at the annex. We use that to store the videos to go back a certain amount of time. The amount of time right now we have set simply as when that recorder fills up, it starts to overwrite the oldest video that we have. I can't remember ever having to do any research back more than 2 weeks at a given time, which this VCR or this DVR covers.
Okay. It also indicates in here the need for security cameras at City Hall was highlighted in a recent fiscal security report provided by ISAC.
Yes, yeah.
Did we, members of the City Council, did we receive a copy of that fiscal security report?
Not to my knowledge. I would obviously follow any direction from the administration upon your request, but I would be, for full disclosure, I would recommend that it is not something that we would share outside of an executive session. It obviously highlights things that I wouldn't necessarily want to have public.
Okay. Fair enough. Our servers are in that building currently, right? This building.
This building, correct.
And I think we're in the process of relocating these servers at some point, right?
We are anticipating a kickoff this week of an analysis of how we can start to strategically move them into a safer environment.
That new environment, that will also have security cameras on it?
The environment we would want to move them into would be a shared environment. We wouldn't want to take on that extra cost and responsibility ourselves. So part of the move would incorporate that facility. When we go out to bid, whatever facility comes and wins that would have to have satisfactory security measures around it. And just additionally, for some of the police data, there are CJIS requirements, criminal justice requirements, for making sure that you have certain security cameras, sign-in, badge, access history, and all that stuff that goes along with it, that they would have to be CJIS compliant.
Actually, the pricing structure or notes from Electronic Alarms, it says pricing assumes customers' in-house electrician will run wiring to each camera location. Is that something that our own in-house electricians are going to be doing, or do we have to outsource that?
No, that would be something we do inside. We have a certified electrician in Rhode Island. It's one of 2 states that I'm aware of that requires certification to do low voltage wiring, meaning those low voltage cables that do networking and camera connection. Our electrician is certified to do that, so he would be able to do it. It's a tedious job, but outside contractors charge you an arm and a leg for that, so we always try to do it ourselves.
Do you have any idea what the projected cost would be for our electrician to do this?
I don't, Councilman, I'm sorry.
It also says the monthly fee covers the cost of adding 10 cameras, blah, blah, blah. What is the monthly fee? I'm not sure if I overlooked it here.
I apologize that I didn't bring the quote with me. It should be in your packet.
Would that be the monthly in advance, $125?
Yes.
That's the fee? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chairman. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from members of this committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any further questions from members of the public on this bid? Thank you. That concludes the consent calendar. May I have a vote?
Move favorable action.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The time is now 6:06 p.m. and the Warwick Finance Committee is closed.
The next committee to meet is the Public Safety Committee, which will start in 4 minutes. Thank you.
We will commence in 1 minute. Did she talk to you? Okay. I confirmed it too. Good evening. The Warwick City Council Public Safety Committee is called to order at 6:10. The first order of business is acceptance of minutes from council meeting held on March 4th. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
PCR 44-24, resolution relative to claims. First order of business, acceptance of minutes from committee meeting held on March 4th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First claim is from Damon Oppen. According to the checklist, all paperwork is here, and there is a recommendation to approve. Any questions from the committee? Councilman Ricks?
To verify, this would be approval in the amount of $231.29, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Any questions from the council? Councilman Lattiser?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions, but I do want to compliment you and the committee for coming up with the design of that checklist that you had talked about recently. Good
Thank you.
job.
That was a group effort. The committee, the administration, and the finance department, and the city clerk. Thank you, sir. Any questions from the public? Do we have a motion? I'm sorry. Oppen. I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand. Are we good? Councilwoman Travis, I'm sorry, I did not. Are you? Oh, who? Is Mr. Oppen here? Is there a member of the council, public that would like to speak? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $231.29.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is Stephen Clark. Again, give me 1 second here. I just want to make sure I'm on the right one. You come to the podium, sir. Here we are. All right. The checklist, the paperwork, the recommendation was to deny. And give me a second, sir. And the reason is because of timeliness. I'll get to you, sir, first. Any questions from the committee? Councilman Ricks?
Thank you. So I suppose that my question to you is, when did you first contact the city?
I contacted the city. This happened on I believe it was a Friday night. And then I contacted the city on that Monday to find out the process.
Okay, so Friday night being January 26, 2024, and you're saying that you then reached out to the city on Monday, the 29th?
Yes, sir. And then they connected me to leave a voicemail. I was able to leave a voicemail on the woman who, and I don't have her name in front of me, but she only works part-time. And then she called me back a couple days later and she sent me the paperwork. And then as soon as she sent it, I gathered what I needed to gather, and then once she got all the papers, so then I went down and I dropped it off that building, across the street there. She wasn't there. Another woman said she would give it to her. And then she called me back a couple weeks later and said I needed a police report, which I didn't know. So I went to the police station and they were a little confused. They're like, what do you mean a police report? Did you just get in an accident right now? And I'm like, no, I hit a pothole a couple of weeks ago, but they said I need a report number. So then I was there for an hour and a half. And then the guy finally came and gave me a report number, which I then submitted. So it was a little back and forth, but I work at UPS, so I'm close, but I made multiple trips over there. And I know it's saying it's not timely, but it's kind of difficult to get in touch with someone when I go multiple times and they're not there. I think I made a valiant effort to get the stuff submitted as quick as possible.
I just have I have a follow-up question. When you first contacted the department, and they told you what you needed. You're saying you were not told you needed a police report at that time. It's a follow-up when you were told.
Yes, sir. It was a follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, we'll be back to you.
Okay.
Any questions from the council? All right. Any other members of the public? And let me just, give me 1 second, sir. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Stephen, right?
Yes, sir.
Stephen. All right, thank you for your, based on the testimony of Mr. Clark, I'm looking for a,
Mr. Chairman?
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Councilman Lattiser.
Sorry, I know you asked. I was trying to flip through some of these papers. So I just want to point out that the date of the incident is January 25th.
Excuse me, sir, I'm sorry. Can you
The
talk-
date, sure, the date of the incident was January 25th. Mr. Clark said he notified the Public Works Department on January 28th on this particular page, but yet on the signed affidavit, it says he notified the Finance Department on February 5th, but that wasn't notarized until February 28th. So there is some, a lot of lag in between on this. So just making that point.
Thank you. Councilman Ricks.
Can I speak?
1 second, sir, let me just,
I'll,
thank you.
I'll briefly address. I think I see a source of the confusion here. Yeah, I could see how a 5 looks like a 6 on the printout, and I do see some independent verification in that in the packet. There is a letter from the Finance Department dated February 6th, which would indicate that something had been received by that date of February 6th from the Finance Department. So I can understand how there could have been the phone call on the 29th and then the follow-up with the Finance Department on February 5th, but I'd want to just verify that with a witness.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I contacted like the first day they were open, and then like when she got back to me, then she said, hey, I got your paperwork. And then she got back to me, and I don't have the exact date, saying I needed a police report and I needed it notarized. And then I went down like that day and got a police report from the thing. And then there's a security manager at work, and he's a notary, and they notarized it for me. And then like I returned it like right away. Like I said, I worked close enough. Like whatever they asked for, I did right away. And then that same pothole opened back up like 2 weeks after that. And I like called right away, and I actually got a cone from work, and I put it there because there was like 2 or 3 other people who worked at UPS alone that had an issue with that pothole. So, you know, I'm not here to try to defraud the city of Warwick of $300.
Oh, certainly. One other quick comment is that I do see that you turned in as part of the paperwork a receipt from AAA. The receipt states January 26, 2024, 8:40 p.m. has your name on it. So everything here looks very consistent. I certainly don't think that there's anything here that would suggest fraud in the slightest. I find you highly credible, and I can certainly understand the runaround here with trying to verify all of this information. I think that based on everything you've said, based on the documents I reviewed, I think it happened exactly like you said it did. And I think that any slight delay of over 1 week before getting certain forms in, I don't think that that should be a barrier here, because you had called it in the following business day. That is on Monday, the 29th. So that's where I'm coming from on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve in the amount of $300. And sir, let me just explain to you the reason $300. That's the state cap on damages from potholes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to point out, and this goes back to Councilman Lattiser, when you complimented us on the checklist, one of the things that's on that checklist is that this gentleman got contacted, so that we don't have to hold this for 2 weeks or a month to then notify him to come in and tell us his side of the story. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So just so you understand the process, this is the committee. It's going to go to the council later, after 7 o'clock. You can stay if you like. Most times, but not always, the council works on our recommendation. Just so you understand, so you don't have to stay for an hour and a half to hear. So
Okay.
that's up to you, though.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
I'll trust your good judgment.
And thank you for putting the cone out.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
heard you.
No,
Thank you.
definitely. Like it was like 2 weeks later. It was
Yeah.
huge. So, but it's been good since then. So,
Thank you very much, sir.
all right. Appreciate everyone's time.
The next item is Michelle Clasby. The recommendation is to deny, and the reason is listed. Again, timeliness. Any comments from members of the committee? You want to wait till we see if the person is here? Otherwise, we can't talk. All right, is that all right? You good with me? All right. Any other comments from members of the council? Council, yes. Any comments from members of the public? Any comments from members of the public? Any comments from members of the public? Back to the council. Clasby. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Wait. Councilwoman Travis, are you okay? Oh, Councilman Sinapi. All right, we'll hold. All right. Councilman, are you waiting to be recognized? There you go.
The affidavit, Chairman. So normally we don't look at these unless the affidavit has a certain option checked off so that we're not double paying. So right now, this person says they intend to seek compensation from another source, which is fine. It's their right. Absolutely. But we don't want to reimburse someone for something they already got reimbursed. And as of now, there's no indication of whether or not they have been or will be reimbursed for the full amount from this other source, whatever that source might be. So it seems like it would be a good idea to hold this at least for now. Unless there's another reason which to just deny the claim, in which case, have at it.
Well, again, the denial is because I saw is the timeliness. That was the reason for the denial, unless I'm misreading this. Yes, Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. So I would tend to agree with Councilman Sinapi here that it would be appropriate to hold it based on the third box being checked. The same affidavit claims that the claim was filed with the Finance Department on that date of January 17th, which is the date of the incident. I don't know if that was a mistake on the affidavit or if it could be one of the situations like this in the claim that was immediately preceding this one, where there was a call that was placed or something that was initially filed with the department, and then we're seeing only some documents that were filed later on. One of those multiple contact types of situations, which could preserve the timeliness, but we simply don't have enough information in front of us right now. So for both of those reasons, I think it would be most appropriate for us to hear from the claimant to clarify on those points.
So we have a motion. to
Mr.
hold.
Chairman,
Councilman Lattiser.
yes, I'd also like to follow up on Councilman Sinapi's observation. We seem to have a discrepancy here with the notary. The notary notarized a document on February, I'm sorry, I'll take it back. I was looking at the finance department, notified the finance department on 2/17, but it's actually 1/17. I'm all set. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have a motion? Go ahead. No, she's talking to him.
Yeah, so do we have a suggestion for the date to hold?
A month? What's the clerk, what's the first meeting in June? No, June. All right.
Move to hold June 3rd.
I believe
Second.
I think that's the 4th, though. Am I wrong? I'm sorry. Yep, the 3rd. That's a very important date. Yep.
Move to hold to June 3rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item is Dan Corrigan.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, we just wanted to
Yes.
make sure, is Michelle Clasby here? One last call.
I asked 3 times,
Okay. All right.
and I saw no hands. All right, thank you. Dan Corrigan.
PCR on that one.
Oh. What was the number again? What was the number again, please? Thank you very much. All right, now we're back to Dan, and the recommendation is to approve. Any questions for, again, the checklist did come. I followed up when I first saw the claims. I followed up with the chief of staff. I was sent documentation. There is a checklist, and all items were in the file. That being said, the recommendation is to approve. Questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Councilman Sinapi.
Is this regarding Corrigan?
Say what?
The Corrigan claim, correct?
Yes.
So I talked to this individual. Can you please hold this?
Okay. I don't, I'm gonna, I don't know if it's appropriate. Can I ask why, since it's being approved and it's to the max amount?
Absolutely. So they didn't actually get the 3 estimates the way we're used to. That's actually all from the same vendor, if you look. And they didn't because they were unclear of the process. And there's some other stuff when it comes to the amount. They almost hit a cap that would result in it going to the trust. It's like it's a whole series of things. But
Thank you. I just, again, point of information. That's all I was.
no worries. But if you notice, the damage is significant. It was thousands of dollars. So we're trying to figure out if it's possible for them to get handled by the trust instead, so
Okay.
that they're not capped at the 300.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, so questions from the public? Questions or comments from the public? Questions or comments from the public? So do we have a motion to hold as per requested from Councilman Sinapi?
If I may briefly comment,
Yes.
I don't see a way around the statute, but if Mr. Corrigan desires for some additional time to perfect his claim and examine his options, I certainly have no objection to holding. Councilman Snappy, do you believe that June 3rd would be sufficient?
We can go for June for now. Worst case scenario, if I talk to them again and it gets pushed back again, it's not the end of the world.
Okay.
Move to hold to June 3rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Clerk, do we need a PCR on that? Thank you very much. Moving on. Patricia Donahue. Hold on, let me get my paperwork. Nope. Hi, Patricia. Please go up to the mic. I'm just... Come on. There we are. All right, the recommendation is to deny, and there is no clear evidence, according to the form, there is no clear evidence that the city truck passing down the roadway had any involvement with the broken window on the vehicle. Any questions, comments from the committee? Go ahead, sir. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Ms. Donahue, something
I can't hear you.
oh, pardon me, something I'm not certain about was when the plow was coming by, do you know if there was already snow or ice on the ground?
Yes.
Okay, and so I'm not sure from the description if it seemed like the rock that broke your rear windshield. Do you believe that that was because of the salt and the sand that they were throwing off the back of the truck?
Yes, because I think we had snow a few days before that even, and I believe it could have even been an ice chunk. What happened was I'm in the basement apartment, but I have the part in the garage, in the driveway is where my door is and stuff. On the corner of the house is my bedroom is right there. And it was like 11:30, quarter to 12, something like that. And I heard the truck coming up, and it was a big one, which I'm not used to hearing those big guys coming through. And I heard the ping, 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 and I thought it was hitting the house. Now, I know my landlord is not a pleasant person. And so after a while, I got dressed and I went out. I actually cleaned off the front of my car. And when he finally came out, I said, I want to let you know, you better check the side of the house. And as we walked around to the side of the house, which was on the other side, like this was the back of my car facing the road, we walked around this side to check the house. He noticed that it was my windshield. And there was pieces that what was hitting the house was the fragments from the window, the safety glass, the little pieces. We did have it on, what we did have was, because he checked right away on his ring, and we got the truck as it was going up and as it was coming down, but unfortunately, it only carried it to the corner of the house, not directly in front of my car.
May I ask a question, please?
Oh, sure.
Ms. Donahue, on the three estimates, is it the Patriot Auto Glass is the one who actually
Yes.
did the repair? Okay, that's my only question. You have anything else?
Did you find any rock or ice or the like inside the car after the windshield
No,
was...
it didn't go all the way through. In fact, it didn't actually like shatter to pieces till I slammed the door of the car, and then the whole thing just went, which wasn't real fun. But I don't know if you have the photos, but there is a picture of a hole on the back windshield. Not very big, about this big, but again, I don't know what hit it. As again, it could have been a chunk of ice because there was pieces of ice on the ground, like chunks like this big. I don't know. That was just something that they told me that could possibly have done it.
Thank you. And I do see the police report where it discusses that the officer did review that video. And yeah, that video was time and date stamped. So I think that although the department is making a statement that, quote, there is no clear evidence that the city truck passing down the roadway had any involvement with a broken window on this vehicle, quote, I do think that this is one of those classic situations where the damage wasn't there before that vehicle passed by. The vehicle passed by and the damage was there.
Yeah, my car would have been sitting in the driveway for 3 days because I don't get to go out that often and stuff. And that's how I knew that there wasn't back there, because believe me, I love my little baby. It's old. And it was a shock to me. And as soon as that happened, and my landlord, and I said to him, I said, do you think you have it on your ring? I don't even know where his rings are half the time anyhow. And he went up and found the two of them. And basically I was told that, you know, you have to have a picture of it as it's being done. I don't have a ring. I live in a basement apartment. I don't have a ring out there. I don't have internet. I don't have any of that stuff. So unless you're standing out there waiting for the truck to go by, how are you going to see that?
Thank you.
This all adds up to me. If there's no objection from the chairman, I would make a motion.
Excuse me, comments?
Yep, I'm coming, sir.
Questions?
Members of the council, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. A few things that I just wanted to point out with this particular claim is the owner of the vehicle stated that her son, or it says, my son paid to have it fixed quickly. But when I look at the invoice from Patriots Auto Glass, it doesn't say anything about payment. It says amount paid, 0, and it was signed by Patricia Donahue.
I believe it's on the
January-
credit card. He paid with his credit card. And he was not present, so I don't know how they ran it, but it was his credit card. I could not afford it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so on the invoice that is signed dated 1/22/24, it shows a balance due of $289.
Yes, and we have our constituent here testifying that that bill was paid in her behalf, and she's looking, that damage was to her car, and she owes her son that amount. I'm not questioning her on that.
And we did check around, and there was a lot of places that were much higher. And I had told that was a good place to go.
Any other questions, Councilman?
No, I'm all set.
Council President.
Thank you very much. I asked my colleagues to approve this. I know that area. She's a resident of Ward 7. That's a tough street as well that could use some improvements around there as well. So there's lots of debris, and I'm not surprised that unfortunately something like this happened. So
And the one thing I'd like to say though too is that, I mean, I have a picture of another storm, and because it's kind of on a curve, the truck comes up, no matter what truck it is, comes up. And because it's on the curve, they push, of all places to push my driveway I said, I'm going to put my handicap sticker out there one of these days. And they push it into the driveway. And that's why I actually moved my car, knowing that we're supposed to have this big storm and everything. I actually moved my car, which is usually facing out. I turned it around and moved it all the way down so that I could barely get out the front door, so that it wouldn't be anywhere near the road. And it still happened.
yeah, I just think it's an unfortunate situation. So I asked my colleagues for support on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $289.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Donahue, I don't know if you heard me telling to the other gentleman, this is the committee. This will go to the full council, but that will be after 7 o'clock. If you're welcome to stay, usually the council votes based on our recommendations. But I wanted you to be aware of the procedure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Sydney Martin. Yeah, that was my set. I'm sorry. Sydney, I know I have another one. The recommendation is to approve. Checklist is attached, the amount of $283.20. Any questions, comments from the committee? Councilman Ricks.
It appears that the lowest estimate is $266.99. Other than that, it appears that everything is in order here.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Questions from the public? Questions from the public? Questions from the public? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $266.99.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item, Tracy McKenna. The recommendation is to deny. The checklist is attached. The person was notified, and it seems like she is here. Give me a moment, please, miss.
Sure.
Is it McKenna? This is a timeliness matter again. Any comments from the committee? Comments from the council? Comments from the public? Ms. McKenna, you are on the mic.
Okay,
Could you please?
I didn't realize it was a timeliness issue.
Would, miss, no problem.
No,
If
that's-
you would like, we can hold for a month.
No,
right,
everything
okay.
should be in.
Yep, go ahead.
But I did get the phone call that it was denied, and
Thank you. Yep.
I had no reason, so.
So what it's saying is the time between when it happened and when you filed was beyond the 7 days. Do you have any testimony that refutes that?
I don't. What is the date of my filing that you
The date of
have?
the incident was 1/29.
Correct.
And the date that is 2/9.
I would, if I may ask the witness.
You may, through the chair.
Through the chair. Did you make any phone call to the city
I did.
before February 9th? When
I
was
made
that?
2 calls. I made the day of the incident, 1/29, and I called back on the 30th because I realized what the exact address was, because I had initially given the street, so I called back to confirm an address.
Okay, and I do see that on the form that you filled out as well. So as I see something like this, as I see it, I don't think that this committee is necessarily going to enforce the harsh penalty of not having the precise form submitted within the 7 days, so long as the city was, in fact, notified within 7 days, and then the form had later been filled out as it was on February 9th. So I would not see the timeliness here as a barrier to relief. I do see, though, that the invoice is higher than the other 2 estimates. It looks like the lowest of the 3 is Town Fair Tire in the amount of $215.20. So I would ask if there's any reason why it shouldn't be approved in the amount of $215.20 as opposed to a different amount.
If I make a point of clarification for you, the ordinance, the policy is to go with the lowest estimate.
Okay.
Just so you understand why we're not being arbitrary.
No, I understand that.
All right, let me
And I
go
did,
with,
it was a brand new tire, that's why.
right, let me go through the process. So I've already asked once, let me ask again, any other members of the public comments, questions, any other members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $215.20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Once again, your showing up here is proof that that phone call saves you and the committee and the council 2 weeks to a month. Thank you
Right,
very much.
thank you.
Thank you. The next one is, oh, that was Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is Robert Stanino. I hope I got that right, if he's here. Even if he's not, I hope I got it right. The recommendation is to deny. He was contacted as per chief of staff, conversation, emails. Any questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Questions or comments from the public? Questions or comments from the public? I see your hand, sir. I'm not ignoring you. Councilman Ricks.
I do see that there is a reference on the form to contact on March 8th. The date of the incident was March 2nd. So if the inclination of the committee otherwise would be to deny it on timeliness grounds, it seems like there is some suggestion here that it may be timely, and therefore, I'm not sure if there was an inclination to deny on timeliness grounds, or if there is a need to potentially hear from the witness.
Well, again, I'm not going to, the chair's position is I'm not going to start the policy of contacting the person again. We've done that. We've done our due diligence. I have no problem holding, and if they come to the next meeting, but I'm willing to listen to a motion. Right now, my inclination is a motion to deny. I see the chief of staff coming. Chief, identify yourself, and the mic is yours.
Aaron Mackesy, Mayor's Chief of Staff. Thank you, Chairman. Just one note on that. The Finance Department did notify, as the checklist indicates, the claimants who are denied. The Finance Department would not be going back and notifying these claimants a second time if their items are held. That would be up to them to have been watching the meeting in the first place. So I would just add one point of caution if holding is the pleasure of the committee. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I may.
You may.
A question for the chief. I'm confused as to the rationale for the denial based on timeliness when it appears that the form that was filled out was dated March 8th, and similarly, the affidavit that was signed, the notary also states that it was subscribed and sworn on March 8th. The stated date of the incident is March 2nd, so it certainly seems like it was within the 7 days.
Sure. So, Councilman, I would have to just, to be perfectly honest with this particular claim, I haven't viewed it in the past 5 hours. I'd be happy to take a look at it. I would say just the language of the statute is very clear about that the document, or excuse me, that the claim has to be filed within the 7 days. I understand that there are situations where if there are extenuating circumstances, such as an individual needing assistance acquiring the paperwork, that the department will make note of that. But it is the practice of the city to define filing the claim as filing the paperwork. So I would just have to look at that particular one to answer your question.
Mr. Chairman?
Where is that? City solicitor, I'm sorry, council solicitor.
Reviewing the file, it doesn't necessarily specify. It cites the provisions of the statute. Do we know if Director Earl's here or can speak to whether this was a timeliness issue or if it was a lack of notice issue? Because this is these things come to us under negligence in general, and if we're not aware or should have been aware of a certain pothole, the first strike may not necessarily bind us. So that's another question, but it's not cited so specifically in the director's report. So in the future, I really would like just to see the clarification of, is it timeliness or is it awareness or other responsibilities that would justify their position to deny?
Certainly, we can add that clarity.
Thank you. Again, as the chair, I am making a motion to deny as recommended by the director. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. Oh, hold on. That was denied.
If the mic didn't pick it up, nay.
I'm sorry, sir.
Right away.
Oh, all right.
The mic didn't pick it up.
Oh, okay. My hearing isn't. And the last one is Pamela Tweed, and the recommendation is to deny. I'm just trying to find that. Oh, here it is. For the same reasons. Oh, how are you doing, sir? I'll be with you in a minute then. Thank you very much. Am I correct that the claimant is Pamela Tweed?
Correct. That's my wife.
Okay, I'll be with you. I just making sure I'm reading the right paperwork. All right. Any questions or comments from the committee before we go to the witness? Comments from the council? Comments or questions from the public? Sir,
Yes.
can you identify yourself?
My name is James Tweed. I'm Pamela's husband. interesting. The car is actually in my wife's name. I drive it. Her car is in my name. She drives it. We've never. It is what it is.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. And now, sir.
I would just say, if I look at the paperwork and review, the incident happened on January 18th. The car had to be, I was able to put a spare on it and bring it to the dealer. It's a relatively new car. It required 2 new tires, not just one, because of a balancing issue with you put a new tire on a front of a Volvo, you put another tire on the other side of the old one, it creates a balancing issue and then causes other problems. So it required 2 new tires. By the time they were able to do that assessment and get me a price for the work, and then, of course, me to go out and get other prices as well, I know it took longer than the 7 days. But the incident was filed initially, and then I was told that I needed to get some additional paperwork as well as a police report, which I did.
I do have a question for you. I'm
Sure.
looking at the claim that you filed, and there is a photo.
Yep.
All right. Do you have that in front of you or no?
I do.
All right.
I have your.
And it's a great photo up to a point. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you, sir.
Yeah.
Is the pothole filled in this photo?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Like I say, because of the shading, it
No.
was hard for me to tell.
Sorry.
Okay.
Nope.
No.
It has been filled. Actually, it was been filled in. I live right there. It's been filled in and then reopened again since. So,
And obviously, you notified the city that there was this pothole.
the next day, I notified the city.
Thank you. All right. So any questions from the committee now?
And they actually responded. Sorry, very quickly.
I'm sorry.
They responded very quickly to filling it in. So they filled it in very quickly after they were
Right,
notified.
But then again, like you're saying, it comes out again because, all right. Any other members of the public that wish to speak? Any other members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve in the amount of $300.
Sir, I don't know if I think you were here
I did
earlier.
hear.
You heard why it's 300. That's the cap.
Yes, sir.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, where is that voice?
right up
City
here.
Solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the prior item, the claim of Robert Starnino, Councilman Ricks would like a PCR assigned to that one so that he can vote it separately. So I believe that will be PCR 4724, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
That's
is
correct,
that the
4724.
Robert Sano? I'm sorry, Stanino? All right, and so we're assigning a PCR to that? Oh, you got it for us.
PCR 4724.
There was a favorable recommendation to deny by a vote of 2-1. Councilman Ricks would like to vote it separately from the consent calendar so that he can maintain that position.
So we have a PCR for that, 4724. Is my work here done? No.
No. Oh. Go ahead, Lynn.
Just on a point of clarification, on these claims that you are holding, okay, is it going back to finance to reach out to these people again?
No.
So my office is not responsible? On the claims that,
I'm sorry, let me.
I understand
I
what the
understand.
chief said, but
That's
my
why I
question
asked the
is,
chief of staff, and as he said, that there is no mechanism, once these people have been notified that their claim was to be heard, to recontact them again. And chief, if I'm incorrect, please clarify. So we're holding this. I know Mr. Sinapi said the claimant asked for it to be held, so he will be, I'm sure Councilman Sinapi is going to tell him that we honored his request. As far as the other two, I'm at a loss.
Sure, Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
The administration's new practice on this, following conversations that you and I have
Yes.
had to make this process more open for everybody, is that we would contact the claimants prior to the meetings. The administration would like to stick with that process. We've established this new process. We don't want to get into the ad hoc business of going back and recontacting these folks. Just encouraging more people not to attend that first meeting. So my answer would be that it is, the onus is on the individual to attend to the first meeting, which they're contacted for, and the expectation on the administration side is that no department director need go back and recontact these folks.
I'm in full agreement, sir.
Thank you.
So, back to the city clerk. That it's being held to next month. If they show, fine. If they don't, then we'll move for action. We've already dealt with them. We're done. I'm closing the meeting. The only change, just to answer your question, the only claim is Robert Stanino has been pulled with its own PCR. Everything else, we're done with the consent calendar. The time right now, yeah, the other one's already done. He was asking a point of clarification. Is 6:56, and the Public Safety Committee is adjourned. Oh, do we need to move the consent calendar and vote on it? Okay.
You're all done.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We're
Councilman.
done.
You're all done. Okay, we're almost at 7 o'clock, but we have two quick things to do in committee. So if we could have the public safety meet at this time, they have one item, which is, has a traffic study. And then the second item is to move to the public hearings that will start after 7 o'clock. So intergovernmental will go first, and then public properties will go after that, and then we will start the full council meeting. Thank you.
Oh, intergovernment, wrong one. You stay put. Sinapi. Mr. Sinapi. Mr. Sinapi. Oh, under here, there's something. What do you need, a power?
I need a plug.
Yeah, power?
Do you have a,
Power plug.
oh, do you have like a strip? Is that what's under there?
Kinda. No idea.
It's that guy.
Move it along. All set?
I'm ready. I'm with. Phil's right there. He can help you.
It is now 6:58, and the Intergovernmental Committee is now in session. The first order of business, acceptance of minutes from the committee meeting held on April 22nd, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The first item on the agenda is PCR 41-24, a resolution to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation and the State Traffic Commission requesting a traffic study of Old Forge Road between Post Road and Harbor Terrace. Councilman Gebhardt?
So this particular road, there's been a number of public safety related issues on the roadway there. We've had members of the Warwick Police Department recommend that a traffic study be done there. We cannot perform it. It's a state road. So we're asking the Rhode Island DOT to please do that.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Nope.
Questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Move favorable action.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is now 6:59 and the Intergovernmental Committee has adjourned.
Thank you very much. And let's do public properties. And that can take place at this time.
Well done.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs convenes at 7 o'clock. First up, acceptance of the minutes from the committee meeting held on April 22nd, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
First item on the agenda, PCO 3-24, order on the abandonment of a portion of Lakedale Drive. Gary White and Jean E. White petitioners. Councilman Gebhardt, do you have a recommendation?
Move to open the public hearing.
All right.
Second.
We have a recommendation. I'll move to open the public hearing before the full council. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second on the agenda, we have PCO 4-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Warwick, 1009 Centerville LLC applicant, 1009 Centerville Road, Assessor's Plat 241, Lot 10. Councilman Sinapi, would you like to recommend opening public hearing? Very good. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
The committee adjourns at 7:02 p.m.
We're going to do the public hearing after 7 o'clock. They just recommended to move it to the full council. Good evening, everyone. I call the Warwick City Council meeting for May 6, 2024 to order.
Hey.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gebhardt? Mr. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. McElroy?
Here.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Councilman Gephardt, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening again, everyone. At this time, we're on general communications. This is announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events. I have one a condolence, and I ask for a moment of silence here for Carol Wheat. Carol passed away. She was a Ward 7 resident and also used to work for the City of Warwick, and she worked in the clerk's office and was a colleague of our clerk. as well. So if I could have a moment of silence for her. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other council members that have any announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events? Councilman Foley.
Thank you. On May 18th in Goddard Park, there is a 5K run walk at 10:30. This is to help the Breath of Hope organization. 5-year-old Landon Vasquez has a rare lung disease. His family started the organization to educate people about the disease. And this walkathon, 5K run walk, is to help raise money to help find a cure. The Vasquezes are family friends of the Foleys. Landon's father, as a matter of fact, grew up with my kids. They were in my house numerous times. His mother and father are former Warwick residents. So anything we can do. For information, I know the mayor's has shared this on his page. So anyone wanting information, that might be the easiest way to find it. His name again is Landon Vasquez. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Ricks.
If I could request a moment of silence for Al Torres, a Warwick firefighter, retired, passed away at age 80 on Friday, April 26th. He was also the father of our former colleague, Donald Torres, and the grandfather-in-law of our school committee chair, Sean Galligan.
Thank you. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Anyone else under general communications? I just have one additional one. The budget hearings are scheduled for Monday, May 20th. So the public hearings for the city budget will be Monday, May 20th. Okay, next up is executive communications. There are none. Move to A, which is the acceptance of the minutes from the council meeting held on April 22nd. Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. There are no announcements of appointments, and there are no appointments requiring confirmations. At this time, I ask my colleagues if there would be any objections to moving right to the two public hearings that we have here, and then we'll come back to the consent calendar. So is there any objections to hearing the two public hearings at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will now move to page 3 on the agenda. Number 1 is PCO 3-24, in order of an abandonment of a portion of Lakedale Drive. Committee report, land use.
Committee recommends opening public hearing.
Okay, do we have a second to that? Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we are now going to have the public hearing on PCO 3-24. How we run our public hearings are, we ask that any speaker please speak directly into the mic and slowly speak and identify themselves for the record. We have a stenographer here for public record. What we will do is I will ask if there is anyone here to present PCO 3-24. Members of that person will present. Members of the council will be able to ask questions. And then after that, I will then ask, are there any members of the public that are here to speak for the project? I will ask that 3 times. I will then ask if there's any members of the public that are here to speak against this project. I will ask that 3 times. And then I will give an opportunity for anyone who would just like to be heard on this project, and we will ask that 3 times as well. So that is how we are going to conduct both of these public hearings this evening. So right now is as PCO 3-24. I see that we have someone here to present. Mr. Resnick, if you can please introduce yourself and your project this evening.
Sorry about that. The Whites were desirous of putting an addition on their home, and when they started the process, they realized although they were going up and had a pre-existing non-conforming lot and pre-existing non-conforming home, even though they were going up and not sprinting out on the footprint, they still had to go to zoning for dimensional relief. Part of the zoning requirement is that you have to have a Class 1 survey. So they had a Class 1 survey and found the home that they'd been living in since 2017, which was built about 100 years ago as an ice house, was encroaching on the undeveloped portion of the road. Once that happens, because it's on a town or city street, the individual can't hold adversely against the owner of the property. So we have to go through a process. And in February, went before the planning board and got an advisory, a successful advisory opinion. We've gone to the zoning board and we have dimensional relief. And now we're dealing with this portion of the home, which is on the undeveloped portion of the road. Now, this is an old subdivision. It was laid out in around 1921. This house was a former ice house. And if one was to look at the maps and do a little bit of the studying that I did, it's pretty obvious that there was an error when the road was laid out. Undoubtedly, the ice house was there before the roads were laid out. So there was an error. It doesn't matter who did it, but it seems that my clients are going to pay the prices. That's one of the things we're requesting. So first of all, the road abandonment, if it doesn't get abandoned, number one, my client may not get a building permit, probably not. Number two, would have difficulty mortgaging the property because there's an exception to title being the encroachment. And number three, would have difficulty on selling the property because there'd be a marketability issue because a portion of the home is on the city's street. Although it's not the developed portion, it's the undeveloped portion. So as you can see with the recommendations from the planning department, that everybody's backing this. The one comment I have is I've asked to have a waiver of the fee. Now, there is a state statute which specifically gives Warwick the right to sell a portion of a road that ceases to be useful to the public. That's the language in the statute. It doesn't say Warwick has to sell it. They have the right to sell it. And I think this is an example of that my client's suffering. And it was told that before we can even make an application to appear before this board, we had to pay over $8,000 for an error that was made around the 1920s or 1930s. This is not a typical, I've been before this council many times on abandonments, and usually there's an abandonment because we argue that this portion of the road ceases to be useful. It might be a road that's a dead end. It might be a road that's been there forever, and or maybe a developer who wants to buy a piece of property so we can get an extra lot. We've done that many times. This is a completely different situation. This is a situation that they bought this house without having a survey, which most people in Rhode Island do. And now they're being told that a piece of property for which somebody back 100 years ago made a mistake in laying out a road, they're being told they have to pay $8,000 to correct an error. I believe it's unfair, it's unjust, and I would request that this council waive that and also grant our abandonment.
Thank you. We do have the planning director here. If members of the council or members of the public have any questions from the administration on this, they did send in their recommendation to us as well. So I think there's two parts. There's the abandonment issue, and then there's the fee request. I think we're going to have the solicitor speak on the fee request. Do you need more time on that, or would you like me to?
So the Rhode Island General Laws 2461 has a general authorization. It opens with a general authorization about an abandonment that Attorney Resnick has cited in a general sense. As you read on in the subsection A, there is a provided clause as it relates to the city of Warwick, which reads, and provided further that the city of Warwick, upon receiving a request for the abandonment of a highway or driftway from an abutting property owner, may sell the highway or driftway to the abutting owner at fair market value. The city's ordinances, section 1-13, were amended in, it looks like 2010, to further clarify the city's process as it relates to street abandonments and sale of same to abutting owner. And it cites the 2461 provisos and says that this follows that the city of Warwick may sell the highway or driftway to the abutting owner at fair market value, and then further describes a very prescriptive approach to how one determines the fair market value by subtracting the fair market value of the abutting owner's land without the abandoned portion of the highway or driftway from the fair market value of the abutting owner's land with the abandoned portion of the highway or driftway included. So essentially, what was the value of the property without it, and what is the and you take that from the value of the property with the new land that they have, and that's how our ordinance describes the proviso, that how you calculate it. And so then it follows a process as it relates to the what they must do. So in this instance case, the appraisal was done to address for that calculation, and it was that value was concluded to be 8660, I believe, and that was submitted upon the favorable recommendation of the planning board and submitted as part of the petition that is brought before us. So the question here is really about the specifics that the General Assembly has applied to the city of Warwick and whether the may do this in this way, and the limitations that the city's ordinances ask for your consideration here is to decide whether or not we have the authority to waive these fees. And it's a question here. It's it's in controversy as it relates to the general versus the specific, and that's something I'm working on, but would at least explain how we get to this distinction about how can we move forward. And so I at least want to pause at this time and see any comments or rebuttals that Attorney Resnick may have.
Attorney Resnick.
My only comment, putting aside the ethics of this whole thing, of being forced to buy something back that was taken by a mistake, and certainly couldn't have been the city, because I don't think there were any planning or zoning boards back in the 20s. But the way I read this, you have the right to sell it, but it says may. It doesn't say shall. You know, I'm going to stick. But I haven't done loads of research on this except, you know, read the statutory provision. And statutory provision talks about ceases to be useful to the public. That's not why we're here. We're not claiming this ceases to be used by the public. It's been used by individual homeowners for over 100 years. And we're just trying to make our property marketable, mortgageable, and give us the opportunity to build. If we didn't do that, we couldn't do any of those things. So we don't meet this head on. So I would hope that you would consider this when you make your decision. We're not looking for land. We're not looking to expand a lot. What we are looking is to be able to move forward with what we have.
Thank you. We're going to continue and then we can come back. Councilman Gephardt, this is Ward 9. I'll give you the first crack.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. You know, I've had the opportunity to speak with the property owners. This one's to me is just a head scratcher of something that just doesn't make sense. You know, it's a 100-year-old administrative error that, you know, essentially to do anything with their property now, the homeowner's got to make right. The road clearly is in front of their house, not under their house, and it doesn't feel right for them to need to then go buy that property, which was at no error of their own or no malicious intent of their own. Just happened to be where the chips fell here. So, you know, I think longer term, you know, if there is no opportunity here, you know, if we can't split the hair and say that if we're not selling it at all, you know, and I've approached the administration over the past couple months to say, can we just give this to the owner? Can we, you know, is there any other path? And, you know, to date, I've not found any successful path to follow here. It was sort of my last ditch effort that tonight we'd come here and I'd, you know, make a motion to amend the dollar value on this down to zero and, you know, fix this 100-year-old mistake for these folks so that they can go forward with their project. But it's sounding, you know, from the legal interpretation that maybe that may not be an option either. So either way, I'm in support of you know, allowing the Whites to move forward with projects on their property and with enjoying their property. But it's just one that I really think we should look at that ordinance, because there are these situations where there's extenuating circumstances, and wish we had a different way that we could deal with this particular situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Snappy.
I'm especially curious if this is an open question because I have a similar issue in my own ward, and I agree that it's kind of a silly issue to have, frankly, because just like here in my ward, it's similarly kind of ridiculous, the problem we're having. So if there is a way for us to remedy it, I certainly would be of interest in that.
Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Through the council president to Attorney Resnick. This portion that the city, according to the survey, the city owns, has that portion of square footage been something that the city has been taxing, or is that not something that the city has been taxing as part of the as part of your client's property?
I can't. I really can't answer that. I mean, I can tell you that if you, I'm sorry. People usually tell me to keep quiet. You got to get louder. I don't know. I mean, I assume when you assess a property, you look at the whole property, you assess everything you see, and if they probably assume that 100% of that house was on our lot, which it isn't.
Yeah. So in that situation, through the council president, to address Councilman Sinapi and Councilman Gebhardt, the concerns that they brought up, I would suggest that if hypothetically, in many of these situations, what happens is that the property that is owned by the city is something that the abutting property owner effectively gets the value of without paying property taxes on for that period of years. And alternatively, if the abutting property owner is in fact paying taxes, real estate taxes on that city-owned property, then it would seem to me that the remedy would be a tax appeal to clarify the actual amount of square footage here. Unfortunately, it is a rather limited remedy because one can only go back so far in time, but I believe that the most consistent approach here for this city council with our ordinances and based on the state statute and our ordinances consistent with and building on that state statute would be to stick with the amount as stated by the administration. It may be unfortunate in this particular situation, but I believe it's important for us to, at this juncture, be consistent with our ordinances. And I would also raise a concern about making exceptions here and there, because the notion of fair market value, I think that it is fair and proper, leads to better results overall. We don't want favoritism or the like to play any role in these types of decisions in favor of some other than others when it comes to abandonment of city lands and the price that the city gets for those lands. That's all my comments for now. Thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, Counselor, what year did you say the house was?
I'm sorry, it's just a
okay.
plane going overhead.
What year did you say the house was built?
The house was built. It was built as an ice house.
No, the house. The current house that
the house
people live in.
It was an ice house. It was built, added on. Originally, the foundation in this house was the ice house that was built around, we're not sure, 20s, and the plat was laid out in 21. We believe the ice house was there before. Whatever additions happened to the house, but the foundation was there. And when the road was laid out, it was laid out incorrectly.
So when was the dwelling that they're residing in now with the attached porch, when was that built?
I don't know. We don't know. They bought it in 2017. It was there. We know that we do know from what we've been told that a portion of the house, the original foundation, was encroaching. I honestly don't know when the patio went in.
So the current owners are not the original owners. They're
No.
Okay. No, I don't mean original from 100 years ago. I mean original.
Even I wasn't here then.
I mean original from whoever added on to the ice house. Now, I see in this plan that we have, I don't see where it indicates where the footprint of the ice house was in this plan. Do you have something like that?
There was a plan submitted which part of the package is a plan that was prepared, or road amendment plan by Ocean State Planners, which shows the lot, the original lot, with the footprint, and in the area of abandonment.
Is that what you have? Mr. President, may I check that? When when this ice house was added onto and the porch was built, it's actually, the majority of the encroachment is done by the porch. There's very, very little encroachment by the dwelling itself. When that porch was added on, I would assume that there was the proper permitting that took place to do that, which means setbacks would have had to be considered and so forth. But with all that said, we're talking about an error that happened a long time ago. The more important question for me right now is is there any part of this abandonment that comes near the street?
No.
It doesn't appear to, right?
Not at all.
None of it.
No.
Okay, so the width of the street would not be
Not at all.
affected at all.
If you look at that plan, you'll see the dotted line of
Right.
the actual paved area.
Okay, yeah. So the problem I have is not so much with the request for the abandonment, but the request to eliminate the purchase price of the land. And a big part of that is because the various steps that were taken to get here, those decisions of favorable support were predicated upon a payment of $8,660. That's how this ended up here before us. That would have had to go, I would assume, before planning and before the zoning board and whatever, right? There's a bunch of big process. And throughout that, or at least in the end of that, the final approval or recommendation for approval to the city council came with the $8,660 payment for that land.
Can I respond to that?
And that is where I have a problem in forgiving that, because that's what ended up it getting to us for approval. In addition to now the gray area that was presented to us by the council solicitor. So I don't have a problem, Mr. President. I assume that there'll be two separate votes taken on this?
No, there is nothing before us to waive it. There's just the approval of, this is
As
another
is.
request that they're
Got it.
making. So
Okay.
there's no, there
I
hasn't been a
would-
motion or anything yet.
Unless somebody has something different, I would tend to support the abandonment. I realize that that portion of area, 400 and some square feet is, it's not, we're not talking about, giving away an entire street or a quarter acre or a half acre. So I would lean towards supporting that, but I would not support dismissing the charge for that portion of land. Thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. It would appear that similar to what Councilman Lattiser was just discussing, the issue is somewhat severable in this case, that we are here before us of completing a process, and that could proceed, and it presents the possibility to address this payment or potential credit as a separate measure to be discussed potentially through an abatement or other process. So I would suggest that, to the council, it could be revisited as a subsequent issue following the completion of this process, but that's up to the council's prerogative.
Thank you. So just so everyone's on the same page, the only thing we're actually is before us at this time, there has not been a motion or anything else to amend this, is the abandonment part of this, which is what the planning department approved and recommended to come to the council. So, and recommended for this, correct, Councilman? Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the council? Okay. At this time, are there any members of the public that would like to speak in favor of this project? Just come right up to the microphone, sir.
My name is Richard Langseth, Budlong Farm Road in Warwick, Langseth. I think that there's a problem with this. Everybody's assuming that the city owns the street. Perhaps council has reviewed, does the city have a deed to the street?
I can't. Back in those days, honestly, I don't think they were.
Attorney, you have to speak on the mic.
Again, there was no, I think everybody just assumed they were city streets by common law. When you dedicated a plat, and then of course the laws have changed a little in the last 100 years where we have dedication, they're accepted by the council. So I can't say, I mean, we certainly acknowledge that, just for the record, we acknowledge that that is a city street.
Thank you.
When the city has possession of a street under the rule of incipient dedication, it's an easement, not an ownership. The owner, believe it or not, is the party asking for the abandonment. So what you're asking the owner to do is to buy the property he already owns. Because in the old days, there were no deeds to streets. The streets were simply owned by the abutters, and then easements were created across the street, and that's what we call the public highway. So it makes, in my mind, perhaps council has some other advice, but in my mind, the city doesn't own the street, so it can't sell the street. It can eliminate the easement, which is what we're asking for, or what council is asking for. And then, of course, there's a Scribner's error. If you look at the layout, this is crazy. This is not a typical, 30-foot wide street, 40-foot wide street. This is like a town square. And so the staff, the planning department, is asking for the owner to buy his own property, number one, and number two, doesn't recognize the Scribner's error. So my feeling on this is that the city council should move ahead with the abandonment, but suggest to the planning department that they're in error asking the city to sell a street. It doesn't even own the street. Or perhaps you could I hate to say this, but you might want to bring this up again at another hearing to get that item, to get clarity. This is not the last time this is going to come up. As council knows, Mr. Walsh, in the Buttonwoods Fire District, we've got the same problem all over the place. And the same problem exists in many other locations in the city. And it's just unreasonable for the city to be trying to sell based upon a statute. As I understand it, the only reason why the city's trying to sell this property is to meet the statute. That they're not trying to make a living off of selling streets. And I would think that the city council has the ability to recognize that the city doesn't own the street, so therefore the city can't sell the street. I don't know, maybe I'm too old fashioned, but that's, that's my opinion. And one other thing we have to remember is there's another abandonment coming up, which is far more onerous. It's the airport's abandonment, it's the city's abandonment to the airport.
Yeah, we could have to stick to this, Mr.
But it is an important point. If the city sells this property, is the city also going to sell all those streets to the airport? Oh my God, we got a real problem with that. And I think that that's a good part of the record. But thank you very much for your time, for my time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone who would like to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public that would like to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public that would like to speak against this project? Is there anyone who would like to be heard on this project? Is there anyone that would like to be heard on this project? And are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project? Okay, hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing, and then we will come back to the council again. Chairman Ricks?
So moved.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, council members, any other questions or comments for the applicant at this time? Okay, hearing none. Councilman Gephardt, do you have a motion?
Move favorable action on the abandonment of the portion of Lake Dell Drive.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Ricks. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Ms. Travis?
9 yes, first passage.
Thank you. First passage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney. We had agreed earlier to take up the second public hearing at this time, which is PCO 4-24, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the city of Warwick, 1009 Centerville. Committee report, land use.
Recommend and move open public hearing.
Second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. So we will follow the same process. We will ask if there's someone here to present PCO 4-24. Council members will then ask questions. Then we will open up to the public where I ask if there are individuals here to speak in favor, individuals that would like to speak against the project, and if there's anyone who'd like to be heard on the project. So at this time, please identify yourself, and we are now on PCO 4-24.
Excuse me. Good evening for the record, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sanford J. Resnick, and I represent the applicant, which is 1009 Centerville LLC, for the property located at 1009 Centerville Road. This is a request for an amendment to PCO 18-17, which was approved May 21, 2017. And we're really asking for an amendment to number 4, which was no drive-through. And the reason was because of the site restraints. And there was another concern in regards to morning traffic, and this is not a morning restaurant. Again, this was zoned A15. There was a home there for years. It was changed to general business. The difference in this restaurant, it's kind of a new type of restaurant. It's a restaurant that needs a pickup window. It's not what we call a drive-through. There's no order board. You order through an app. You pay in advance. So all you're really doing is coming onto the property and picking it up. But we also have the advantage of owning the property next door. Next door is where the veterinarian is coming. It's coming along nicely. There's going to be a fast food restaurant there. And the owner of that, which is 889 Centerville, is going to grant an easement to this property, 107. So there'll be the lane. You go in the driveway, take a right, go on to the other property. We have more than ample parking. We'll have more than ample staging. We've talked to the company, and they tell us that I might be off a percent, 91, 92% of the time there's only one car there. So stacking is not going to be an issue, but we have plenty of room because we own that property next door, which is really very substantial. Again, you're going to go in, go around, and pick up the food. That's really the only difference in the application. If anybody has any specific questions, Steve Hardy, who is the principal of both companies, is available. And we have a little map here just to kind of show. This is this lot is a small lot. This is the
Mr. Sanford, you gotta do it on the microphone so it can pick it up for the camera.
Hello?
Yep.
So what we've done is we've moved the building just a little bit to the right. We have parking on 889. We got a lane, you come in here, you go around, we have all this area, and then the pickup window is on the westerly side of the building. A nice flow. And again, the only time anybody would, if someone made a mistake and they got to the line too early, because when you put your app in and you order, by the way, healthy foods, salads, and things, when you put your order in, it'll tell you when it's going to be ready so you can time it. And if you happen to be there a little early, then the people inside will direct you to go over to the parking area. It's kind of simple.
Very nice. Okay, Councilman Sinapi, this is in Ward 8. Do you have any questions or comments?
Just a couple. One, you're aware that it's going to be Kent County Water Authority, that whose jurisdiction it is for all water?
Yes.
And then you're also aware that the city stated, where is it? The parking obligations shall not be diminished regarding AP 241, Lot 11. Yeah. Yes. Are you aware that the city also said the shared parking plan shall not diminish the parking requirements?
We have more parking than we need.
Perfect. And then the only other thing I have is, I remember last time you came for this, you had mentioned a potential encumbrance regarding this exact thing, having a drive-through. Was this the only manner in which you were limited, or do any of the surrounding businesses also have anything in their stuff that will prevent this from actually working? I think the answer is no, but I'm just asking anyway. So am I correct in saying that's a no?
That's correct.
Perfect. And have you heard any issues or complaints regarding any residents in the area? Because I haven't, but obviously it'd be of interest to me if you have.
We haven't heard anything throughout the process.
Perfect. All right. No questions on my end.
Thank you. Attorney, can you talk about the other businesses that are in that plaza there, just so everyone gets an idea of what's already in there?
Right now, under construction, pretty close to being completed, is a veterinarian hospital. We take a ride over there. It's along, and there's one more use in that same building, which is going to be a fast food use. Those are the two uses there.
And this being Rhode Island, what was it before? TGIF?
This was TGIF.
TGIF Fridays restaurant.
For years.
So just giving everybody a idea of what was there before and what is in that area there. Questions for members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Chairman. I vaguely, let me first point out that, following up on Councilman Sinapi's comment, that the building official has a stipulation in here, the shared parking plan shall not, all right, you already spoke to that, right? Yeah, okay. I was at a planning board meeting and briefly heard some discussion on this. I wasn't there for that particular item. Is this the same location where a car wash is pending as well?
There's no car wash.
It's not. Okay. And what you're looking to do is, because as you all saw in here, way back in the day, Councilman Galucci had put a stipulation in that there was to be no drive-through for all the obvious reasons, traffic backup, et cetera, et cetera. You have spoken to that, but you also just briefly touched on something else that brought up a question. How are people going to know when they get into that line that they're supposed to be placing their order on an app? What happens
There's
if,
no, okay.
What
Well,
happens? Let me
people
ask the
get
sec-
educated pretty quick.
Say what?
People get educated pretty quick. They'll be, this will go in a newspaper and people will see you can't order. There's no order board. So, I mean, is it going to happen? I assume so. But again, the studies we've done, and I asked Steve to have a study done of how often there's stacking, and it was over 90, I think it was 93% of the times during the business, there was more than, I'm sorry, there was 0 over 1, 93% of the time. So even if someone does get in there and haphazardly go in and look to order, they'll easily be able to get out and to go over to the parking area and go inside.
They'll be able to get out of the line and
Yes.
go out without having to back
Well,
up
there's
and cause
a-
backups?
You want to show it? Because I can't. Yeah. It's Steve Hardy, why don't you?
Okay.
Hi, Steve Hardy, Gatsby Companies, locating at 333 Main Street in East Greenwich. Yeah, thank you for the time. Just for to answer everyone's question here, the restaurant in question is a company called Kava Restaurant. It is actually one location in Smithfield now. Actually, does not have this mobile pickup lane only. They're in a number of cities, so they don't have the option for this. There's only a couple of these locations. There are about 300 locations nationwide. It's Mediterranean bowls and quinoa salads, that type of thing, healthy options. So I think I don't know if you've seen this before, but Chipotle has been rolling out some of these nationwide where these lanes are clearly marked. It's not on this plan. But when you come in here, there's a mobile pickup lane. There's painting on the lane, and then what happens is once these people come in, they're directed to these. One of the operations people will say, "What's your order? What are you here for?" And say, I haven't made an order. I say, "Oh, if you wouldn't mind, just come around, park in, and come in. This is only for our mobile pickup." And this usually happens really effortlessly. Because as Attorney Resnick had mentioned, once you don't see a menu board, people start to kind of see this. And actually, speaking of Chipotle, where the old Bickford's was on Bullet Hill Road, when that was added in, very similar, same exact thing. Actually, if you notice, that traffic probably reduced once that came in. So that will really operate the same way here. One of the reasons that we had to ask for this and why this was so different from the last one is that the last plan was 0 lot line up against here that didn't allow for the lane to go, or anyone to go around the building from the back. So we just shifted that. We decreased the size of the restaurant from 2,590, I think, down to 2,500 square feet. Still the same amount of seats total, indoor and outdoor. And the key difference here, and what was the big sticking point from looking at the minutes back in 2017, was that these were anything around the morning. everyone was concerned about the morning. And also, there was a fence that was required to, like a wooden kind of, knee-high fence that was to split these two properties. That didn't work. So you wouldn't be able to get that type of circulation through there. Cava Restaurant doesn't open until 11 a.m. Their peak times are anywhere between 11:30 to 1. And just like Sandy had mentioned, 97% of the time there would ever be one at any one time in this lane. So again, we're addressing the ordinance. That this ordinance does not depict between the traditional fast food drive-through that we know, but also just now more of these companies are gravitating towards this pickup only. So
You said you've moved the building over from 2017 proposal. How far have you moved the building over in terms of feet?
About, can't quote me, but 18 feet.
About 18 feet?
Yes.
You've moved it over from where it was to where it's going
Yes.
to be.
So this is going from a square, and the last building had an angle going on that triangle. So,
And in the 2017 ordinance, it speaks to a revised traffic study shall be required to be submitted to the administrative office for review and approval for that use prior to permitting. Has a new traffic study been completed with this proposal?
You just hold 1 second. Give me 1 second, Council.
Sure.
So what it says is, if an otherwise allowed general business use is proposed that has hours of operation that include early morning peak travel times, then a revised traffic study shall be required. And we're not doing any peak morning hours.
Right now. So what happens
Well, it's
at
salads.
some point in the time down the road? Because
We'll have to come back. We'll have to come back.
These stipulations that are approved, implied, required, I've seen them change dozens of times because you know why? Nobody enforces them after they're put in. So if this changes and they go into peak morning hours, then you will need to come back or you'll need to conduct a traffic study.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Assuming someone's monitoring it. Right. Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Looking this over, well, I have a few questions. So just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, I thought initially that this was a request to simply strike condition number 4 entirely.
That's correct. Number 4, the condition is no drive-through.
Right. So if condition number 4 were struck, then to Councilman Lattiser's concern, if, let's say, a few years in the future, there's a decision that, okay, now we're going to be open for morning hours as well, there would be nothing preventing the drive-through from being used in the morning, correct?
That's not true.
Councilman Ricks, if I could clarify this, the reference that they're citing to number 4 is in the prior zone change that occurred, PCO 18-17. The draft before you, PCO 4-24, renumbers these stipulations. So number 5 on the old one is number 4 before us because it removed the old number 4.
I think I'm a little bit more confused now. I was looking at the old PCO-18-17, and that's the one that is one line, line 46, it appears. That reads, quote, that, comma, due to site constraints, comma, there shall be no drive-through use allowed on this parcel, period, end quote.
That's correct. And that's what we're asking to be deleted. Because we don't have a traditional drive-through, we have a pickup, and we don't have the same conditions because we have parking and holding available on another lot. So, and we don't have any morning hours. So if the answer to your question is if a use changes, we're on Centerville Road, honestly, it's really hard to hide that. So if we're gonna make a use, the first thing we're gonna do is come to the planning office and have a discussion with the planner as to what we want to do, and wherever we have to go, if it's this council, we'll be back.
So to clarify, I think I understand what the council solicitor is referring to, that yeah, with PCO 4-24, which is before us this evening, item 5 from PCO 18-17 becomes item 4. And that provision does have stipulations that affect hours of operation, including early morning peak travel times. However, I do still have a concern in that if item 4 is struck in its entirety, then we're not just talking about allowing the proposed pickup window, but a more traditional drive-through as well, correct?
The specific request is the pickup. So when the ordinance, that's up to the council, but it is a pickup window without an ordering board. However they like to word that, that's fine. But again, the last paragraph, which will be 4, which is now 5, we're not asking to change that. So we're agreeing to the prior stipulation in regards to if we're going to have morning hours, which we certainly don't plan to do, then we have to take steps. First one will be to do a traffic study. That's not our plan.
Okay, I would feel a little bit better about this if there were, as part of the stipulations, expressly allowing a pickup window while expressly disallowing the more traditional drive-through that allows for one to place an order of that nature. And part of my concern there is simply the reason why this was required in the first place back then when Councilman Galucci introduced this. But I think that a concern about that particular parcel of real estate is well-founded based on the Chick-fil-A next door. I don't know how many folks here at this council use that road on a regular basis in front of the old TGI Fridays and Chick-fil-A, but I know that oftentimes when I find myself on that road, I find myself turning through the neighboring parking lot in order to make it through, because that road is just a logjam of vehicles trying to get through the Chick-fil-A drive-through. I would want to avoid a situation where that's compounded by another restaurant. I think that the proposal here before us tonight, I think that it can certainly be geared with a pickup window only to avoid that precise situation. But I don't want us to see something where the city council strikes language with one thing in mind, but opens up the door to another Chick-fil-A type situation, which ultimately isn't great for public safety, where effectively people are either trapped or having to unnecessarily turn and make a detour through a private parking lot. That's all my comments for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important that this is their business model is a pickup window. This is the business model for this group. They're not looking for the traditional, you go up to the board and you order it and stuff like that. So a whole lot would have to change and as the attorney said, they would have to come before us. So their business model is not asking for the traditional thing. Mr. Galucci, when he was talking about those, he was talking about the drive-throughs like the ones we see in the Dunkin' Donuts, which abut neighborhoods and stuff like that. As you mentioned, Chick-fil-A is the neighbor over there. You go to Route 2, you go into these are where these types of places is. In my opinion, this is where you want these types of businesses there. People know how to go in and do that. So I think it's important to recognize that their business model calls for this particular thing. And it's newer. People ordering for maps is getting more and more common at place. So when we put in the ordinance back in 2018, probably wasn't as common. So that's why they had it. I just don't want us to get boggled down too much on technicalities, where I think it's very important that each and every applicant comes before us when they need a waiver like this, and we really need to look at exactly where it is in relation to what's already around there and stuff like that. So I know Councilman Sinapi wants to speak again, but let's see if there's any members of the public here to speak in favor of this project. Are there any members of the public here to speak in favor of this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak in favor of this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public here to speak against this project? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project? Are there any members of the public that would like to be heard on this project? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing, and then we'll go back to the council, and on the floor we'll go to Councilman Sinapi. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing? By Councilman Sinapi, second by Councilman Foley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we are back to the council. Councilman Sinapi.
So just a couple things. One, I have no issue with the language as stated because it seeks to prevent the exact issue that Councilman Lattiser wisely raises, because that's a very reasonable concern. Because that requirement exists, if they did, for whatever reason, tomorrow change their business plan to a car drive-through, as long as it even potentially had an impact on these hours, this stipulation would trigger. So I'm not concerned in that regard. I would actually be concerned if we added in an express stipulation, because it stands to reason that the language as present here in clause 5, and that which is now 4, is likely used elsewhere. So I don't want another either owner or applicant later saying, well, it actually doesn't mean what you guys always said it meant because of now what you're doing with this property over here where you added it in this express one because you said it, and the other language didn't cover it. I don't want to upend the apple cart, especially if that's what we've always done language-wise. Seems like a really bad idea, especially when the current language covers it. I understand the preference for getting things as express as possible, but there's a reason with legalese why you don't do that. And one, so you don't mess up everything you've done before, but two, so you're more broad with what you catch. So I'm perfectly fine with it as is, and I think changing it would actually potentially be detrimental towards our stipulations elsewhere, so I would not be in favor of such.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Ricks.
A question for the council solicitor. Paragraph 4 on the current one before us, which used to be paragraph 5, that stipulation relating to a traffic study only relates to early morning, correct?
The clause you're referencing begins, if an otherwise allowed GB use is proposed that has hours of operation that include early morning peak travel times, then a revised traffic study shall be required to be submitted to the administrative officer. So it's being qualified on the travel time piece.
Right. So I think that my concern remains that if paragraph 4 from the original PCO 18-17 is simply struck in its entirety, then that means that if a drive-through were to be opened for a restaurant that only has hours of operation that are outside of the early morning, say from 11 o'clock a.m. forward, I think we can all agree that that's not early morning. Then, if we were to have struck that stipulation, in theory, the applicant, the business, could go ahead, open a traditional drive-through without the need for a new traffic study or anything of that nature. So what I would suggest, so as to accommodate the applicant in the business model that they are suggesting here, which I have no opposition to exactly the business model that they are suggesting here, I would oppose a traditional drive-through at that location, but not what they are suggesting here. I would suggest that paragraph 4 of PCO-18-17 be modified such that what is paragraph 4 on PCO 4-24 would become paragraph 5, and that the new paragraph 4, it effectively strike what is paragraph 4 on PCO 18-17 and replace it with the language that, quote, that due to site constraints, there shall be no order window or similar allowed on this parcel, semicolon. However, comma, notwithstanding such condition, comma, a pickup window shall be allowed on this parcel. End quote. I'd be open to suggestions on that precise language, but I think that language to that effect would accomplish the purpose while maintaining the protection of not simply allowing a drive-through with no caveats.
So one thought, Councilman Ricks, I don't know if this would be simpler, because I'm not sure if it captures what you're looking for, so I apologize in advance. If what is currently in the old one, number 5, and is proposed now to be number 4, where it's that this recommendation for zone change is contingent upon an allowed general business, blah, 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 blah. And it has the specified time as early morning peak travel times. Would it make more sense just to get rid of the caveat of early morning so that it captures any and all peak travel times? Because that's the concern, is not that whether or not they have a drive-through, because that in and of itself doesn't matter. What matters is if they have a drive-through that causes a traffic problem.
I agree. I think that that's a perfectly good way of addressing the issue.
And then we wouldn't need as much to change as much, because I don't disagree that what you were proposing potentially makes sense, but doing it the way I just proposed is potentially simpler, although I'd leave it to the solicitor to tell us whether or not we're both crazy.
Okay, we're getting lost in the weeds here. Do you have an amendment? If you want to make a motion, you got to make it a motion and get a second, then we can have a discussion. We can't have this back and forth. Please make it clear exactly what you were looking for.
Thank you. Yes, I would move to amend PCO 4-24, looking at the existing paragraph 4. I would, starting at line 5, strike, starting with the word that, and continuing onto line 6, strike has hours of operations that include early morning peak travel times, comma.
That the amendment?
That would be the amendment.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second to his amendment? Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Lattiser.
Oh,
You seconded his amendment, correct?
I did.
Okay.
So the question I have is, Councilman Ricks spoke about line 5 and line 6. It also, in line 4, it says, which represents no impact on the early morning peak travels. And that's what Councilman Sinapi was referring to as well. So it's in there more than once. That's the reason I seconded it, for clarification.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Okay, do you have any comments on the amendment?
If I understand it would be, if I understand it, then we'd be immediately required to go do a traffic study. So the whole point of this was to keep what's there in effect, or whatever we do, other than what we're doing, we would need a traffic study if it affected the morning hours. This is Centerville Road. The one problem I understand with the coffee across the street, but this is not that kind of restaurant. We probably wouldn't do that, but I certainly would agree that we wouldn't have an order board if someone's concerned about the drive-through. But I mean, we can't agree to shoot ourselves in the foot to get this approval and then have to do a traffic study. Doesn't make sense.
Councilman Howe, and then we also have the planning director here as well. I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Thank you. I was just going to ask the councilman from the area, the work is done, Councilman Sinapi, what his opinion is on the amendment. And, oh, I apologize. Councilman Tim Howe, Ward 3. I'm asking Councilman Sinapi what his feeling is, since this is in his ward, on the amendment. Thank you.
So my preference, if we wanted to address the issue as raised, would be to simply remove the phrase early morning the 2 times it appears, which would be different than the amendment as proposed. And I'm not sure the applicant's concern is valid. And so correct me if I'm wrong, because I might not be understanding it correctly. Because the trigger for the traffic study is that there has to be an impact, let's pretend early morning wasn't there, on peak travel times to that section of the road, and that, or that the use would include peak travel times if it's not otherwise the other general business use. So based on the business model, it doesn't sound like there would be an impact, unless I'm missing something. Or is this going to fall into the different allowed general business use, in which case it's going to automatically require the traffic study simply because of the hours of operation? So basically, does this business fall under clause 1 or clause 2 for the purposes of that paragraph? The first trigger or the second? Because as long as it only falls under the first trigger, then the concern about an automatic traffic study is resolved. If it falls under the second trigger, then you're absolutely right. It does seem like a traffic study right off the bat would be required if an amendment went forward.
So maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it seems that any other use other than the one we have, whatever the use is.
You got to go right on the mic. You got to say it right into the microphone.
It seems to me that, again, we're here, ask for an amendment in regards to a drive-through. Now we're going through a whole change in requiring traffic reports. This is Centerville Road. Anything you do there is going to have effect on the extraordinarily heavy traffic. The concern of the last council, as bad as it is, morning would be a problem. But the rest of the day, I mean, it seems to be anti. I'm not sure why we would have to do a new traffic study for a different use.
Thank you. We're going to go to Solicitor Walsh, then we're going to go to the administration, and then we're going to vote on this amendment.
Councilman Sinapi and members of the council, I would concur with Attorney Resnick on this, that these appear to have independent implications, so that the amendment as presented would operate in a manner that triggers traffic studies much more than what is currently presented. So
You said the amendment as presented, not what I was talking about though, right?
we're on the amendment.
All right, so understood.
Director Kravitz, please identify yourself for the record.
Yep, Tom Kravitz, the city planning director. The only thing I can offer is some insight as to what the planning board was thinking when they reviewed this, and what moved them was the technology that's employed now at drive-throughs. Chipotle, you cannot order, you need to use a mobile device and order through an app. And that's the only way you can get food. I did it personally myself, and you have to just drive through. They'll wave you through. You cannot get food. So the planning board rests in the fact that the new technology makes the lines move quicker, and there's a big parking lot adjacent to the site. So I think Councilman Ricks may have had it right the first time when he simply tried to articulate, a drive-through shall be allowed, however, provided that it utilizes wireless technology apps to execute the ordering off-site, and it shall be a pickup site only. I think if you did that, it would work fine.
Whatever works, as far as I'm concerned.
So it's my understanding is that this went through the planning board. They came up with the recommendation on this. They were comfortable with this. They did the due diligence and made the recommendation, as is the applicant before us at this time. We take into account where this is, and there was no residents here to speak for or against the project or had any thoughts on the project as well. Councilman Sinapi said he hasn't heard from anybody as well. So I just want to point that all out, that I think we're on a good path here. I'm not sure if the amendments are helpful. And again, we're talking about this particular business plan. So what could happen down the road and everything like that, we can't plan for everything in all situations. We can only vote on what is before us at this time. So there has been an amendment. It has been seconded. I'm going to have Councilman Ricks, and then go ahead, Councilman Ricks.
First, a brief comment that in this situation with the abutters, I don't believe that there were any residential abutters who were notified of this. That's just a matter of the layout. This is not near any residential properties, but this is also something that, similar to so many heavily trafficked sites, it's something that is going to affect thousands of people, but there might not be any particular person who individually has a strong incentive to come here. With that said, I would move to substitute my amendment to the effect of the planning department director's statement. So we would leave the existing paragraph 4 of PCO 4.
Councilman, hold on. Okay, so now you want to withdraw your first amendment and make another amendment?
Correct.
Okay. Any objections to Councilman Ricks withdrawing his amendment? Hearing none, the amendment is withdrawn. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. We would add a new paragraph 4 to the effect, and I'll allow the planning director or the council solicitor to state to that effect so that I'm not tripping over my own language.
Hi, Tom Kravitz, planning director. I had suggested that perhaps a revised condition 4 could read that a drive-through shall be allowed. However, it's subject to pickup only, no ordering on site. Ordering shall be done through wireless technologies utilizing apps.
The planning director said it far better than I could. That is my amendment.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Lattiser. Okay, first of all, I think it's important that, they went through all this process here, that amendments like this should have been made at the planning department if this was a concern. The planning department did not have a concern the way the pickup is. So I think, I get a little weary every time we try to go and make these big amendments at public hearings where, other boards and stuff have already reviewed and made recommendations to us on certain things that I'm not sure everybody has gone through and reviewed that as well.
Could the planning director rephrase, because I'm catching up to the...
We need to hear the exact language so we know what the vote is.
Section 4 again could read, I might word it differently now, but a drive-through shall be allowed, provided, however, that there shall be no ordering on site. Ordering shall be executed through wireless technology apps.
Once again, on site.
Wireless technology apps off-site. In other words, you would use your cell phone.
Once again, we got to be careful. This limits a lot of things based on that phraseology.
We got to be careful because we have inside seating and inside ordering.
Where one uses a wireless device, to the council's point, it could be in the parking lot.
Right, but we're talking about the drive-through.
Exactly. Yeah, but they could order it in the parking lot there. That would be on site, so that's a problem. Technology could change. They could do it some other way. We're saying wireless.
Right.
But we just need the amendment. We need the amendment, then we can debate it. So what is the final language? Councilman Ricks, this is your amendment, not the director. So please make the final language.
Thank you. The language of my amendment would read, there shall be no separate window for ordering at a drive-through, semicolon. However, a drive-through pickup window shall be allowed, period. End quote.
Okay, so that's the language. Councilman Lattiser, you seconded that language. Okay, I'd like to hear from.
I'm sorry, could I?
Yeah, can you please repeat the language of what you're proposing?
Thank you. I would kindly ask if the stenographer could read it back.
Solicitor Walsh will read it back.
Councilman Ricks has asked that a clarification be made, and we can work on the exact location, but the language that he just read was that there shall be no separate window for ordering at a drive-through, semicolon. However, a drive-through pickup window shall be allowed.
Once again, please, I'm sorry. I just want to be careful that we don't preclude ourselves from business.
The language that was offered and we haven't identified the exact location of where it may be put in, is that there shall be no separate window for ordering at a drive-through. However, a drive-through pickup window shall be allowed.
That's fine.
Councilman Sinapi, this is your ward. Any thoughts on that amendment?
Well, the petitioner's fine with it. The solicitor seems fine with it. He hasn't thrown anything at us, and the city seems fine with it, so I'm fine with it.
I just need one moment to
Sure.
identify location if there's any other questions, comments.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Councilman Foley.
I don't want to drag this out any further, but this is one of the reasons businesses might not be coming to Warwick. They went through the planning department, they went through zoning, who looked at this in minutia. They make a recommendation here, and on the fly, we're going to amend this and to Councilor Resnick standing there with his client saying, well, I hope we're not screwing ourselves. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous that at the 11th hour, in 4 minutes of consultation there, they have to decide about their business model. And we wonder why businesses don't come to Warwick more often. This is a perfect example of that. I am not voting in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Councilman Foley. Councilman Howe.
I just want to thank my colleague for saying that, because when this happens, I feel the exact same way. There's a process. Every planning board, I look at the agenda and I read to see what it says. And respectfully, I also respect the opinion and the input and the valued time of a colleague who represents the ward. The council person of that ward knows that area best. And when we start kind of just throwing our 7, 8, 9 cents in on things that have been worked out between the planning board, the zoning board, and the person of the representative of the ward, I can't describe it any better than what Councilman Foley did. I just have to go on record and say that and then I get nervous. The second part I get nervous about is when we start putting restrictions on one particular business in an area. That sets a precedence. So for me, that sets a precedence. So again, thank you, Councilman Foley, for identifying that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hear what my colleagues are saying. I understand what the petitioner is saying. And sure, zoning has their meetings and their go at it, as does planning. And then they make a recommendation to this city council. That doesn't mean that we are not independent thinkers. It doesn't mean that we have to just rubber stamp something because it was recommended to this council. I think of myself as an independent thinker. You can bring me your recommendations, you can bring me your suggestions. After I hear all of the conversations back and forth, I'm quite capable of making my own decisions. And sometimes I would agree, and sometimes I disagree. And that's how I view my job and my responsibility, not just to say, okay, we have a recommendation and I have to go along with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the amendment? You've already spoken on it. You've already spoken on it. I think we should take a vote on the amendment. Hold on, Solicitor Walsh. Okay, we've had a lot of discussions, a lot of back and forth, a lot of changes. I would like the solicitor to read the amendment that's been seconded one last time. Then I'm just going to ask the petitioner their last thoughts, and then we'll vote the amendment.
So as this provision that existed previously was a separate stipulation, my recommendation is to treat it similarly. And so the amendment that Councilman Rick, seconded by Councilman Lattiser, has presented is to add stipulation number 5 that would say there shall be no separate window for ordering at a drive-through. However, a drive-through pickup window shall be allowed. So that is the amendment, Mr. President.
The amendment before us, we've had a lot of discussion on this. I'll give the petitioner the last word. This is just on the amendment. And you don't have to give any last words on this. While they discuss, I think it's important, as what Councilman Foley said, that, you know, he has to meet with his client right now, kind of on the fly for a big change here.
Think about what you're missing. So it's so difficult. We're okay. We're fine.
Okay. So the motion has been moved and second. The clerk will call a roll for favorable action on the amendment.
Mr. McAllister?
No.
Mr. Foley?
No.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
No.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
No.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. Travis? Yes. 5-4, sorry, amendment passes.
So the amendment passes. So now we have that language in the amendment. That is the new thing going forward. Councilman Sinapi, any last comments or do you have a motion to make?
Just thank you to the petitioner for being so accommodating. And other than that, I move for favorable action.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Foley, Councilwoman Travis, Councilman Ricks. Any questions or comments? So now it's before us with that amendment on any other issue that was discussed. Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action as amended.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
No.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Ms. Travis? Yes. 8 yes, 1 no, and favorable. Where are we?
Thank you. The
As
PCO 4-24 has been passed favorable with that amendment.
Thank you.
First
Thank you
passage.
for first passage. Thank you. And that concludes the 2 public hearings this evening. Back to the regular agenda, we need to go back to page 2 on the agenda to the consent calendar. First up is PCR 43-24 resolution relative to bids. Committee report finance.
Favorable action.
For action, Councilman Howe.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Foley. Go right ahead, Councilman Howe.
Bid 2025-015, 2025-011, 2024-352, 2022-285, 2024-455, 2024-065, 2025-026, 2024-461, 2024-456, 2024-460, 2024-457, 2024-088, 2024-458, 2024-459, 2024-076 alpha. That concludes the bids from the consent calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any questions or comments that were not asked earlier this evening in the Finance Committee? Okay, next up is PCR 44-24, resolution relative to claims committee report, public safety.
Recommend favorable action.
For action, Councilman Foley.
How you doing? The first one is number one.
Favorable action, and we just need to get a
Yes,
second
move
by
favorable
Councilman
action.
McElroy. Go right ahead, Councilman Foley.
The first one is Damon Oppen. The recommendation is to approve in the amount of $231.29. The second is Stephen Clark. The recommendation is to approve in the amount of $300. The next one is for Patricia Donahue. The recommendation is to approve in the amount of $289. Sydney Martin, the recommendation is to approve in the amount of $266.99. The next one is Tracy McKenna, recommendation to approve in the amount of $215.20. And Pamela Tweed, the recommendation is to approve in the amount of $300. We have three that were pulled.
Yep, thank you, Councilman Foley. Any questions or comments on these that were not asked earlier in committee? Okay, hearing none, the consent calendar has been moved in second. So the clerk will call a roll for favorable action on the consent calendar.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, consent passes.
Consent passes. I believe there was 3 items removed from the consent calendar. Councilman Foley.
Yes, the first is for Michelle Clasby, PCR 45-24 to hold till June 3rd.
Hold to June 3rd.
Dan Corrigan, PCR 46-24, hold to June 3rd.
Hold to June 3rd.
And Robert Stadnino, PCR 47-24 to hold, deny.
So that's favorable to deny.
Favorable to
That's
deny.
So you'll make that motion favorable to deny?
I make that motion.
And seconded by Councilman McElroy and Councilman Howe. So this claim went through committee. The recommendation is favorable to deny. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no. Motion to deny passes.
Thank you. Now we're moving to, we did the 2 public hearings. So now we're moving to page 5 on the agenda, which is unfinished business. There are none. So now we're moving to new business. First up is PCR 41-24, committee report, intergovernmental.
Favorable action, Mr. President.
For action, Councilman Gephardt.
Move favorable action.
Second by Councilman Lattiser and Councilman Howe. Any questions or comments on this that were not asked earlier this evening in committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call a roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Ward 1, anything to docket under unanimous consent?
Pass.
Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Pass.
Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8. Ward 9.
Pass.
Councilwoman Travis.
If there be no further business from this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
All those in favor of moving to docket session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in the docket session. I have 2 items to docket this evening. The first is a resolution relative to transfers, supplies, supplemental appropriations, and emergency appropriations. So hence, a resolution relative to transfers, supplemental appropriations, and emergency appropriations. That's finance. And my second item is a resolution adopting and setting the tax rate of the city of Warwick for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025 for the Finance Committee. That's the budget, and we're going to start at 4 o'clock on the budget day. Ward 1, anything to docket?
Pass.
Ward 2. Pass. Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Yes, Mr. President, I have one. It's a resolution And the contents would be requesting city solicitor review bid number 2024-065, overlook any claim, including breach of contract the city may have, and take appropriate action.
Intergovernmental. Ward 6?
Pass.
Ward 7 already went. Ward 8?
Just one, a resolution requesting General Assembly to enact legislation exempting from taxation the real property and the tangible personal property of Disability Rights Rhode Island.
Intergovernmental. Would the fiscal note be coming with that before we take it up? Ward 9.
Pass.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.